Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Tiki here,
And BlueDragonFive.
and welcome to the Main Street Cinema, the show where we discuss the finer points in filmmaking. Oh boy, folks. Roughly 10 years ago today. 10 years, like a little less than 10 years, like it'll be 10 years come early May. Roughly 10 years ago today, folks, a little movie premiered that little did we know was going to change everything. And that movie was Iron Man. And folks, it's been a long journey. It's been an amazing 10 years of fandom. And, some of the there's been some highs, there's been, a couple, not lows, but a couple movies that, a couple for the Dark Worlds, a couple Incredible Hulks, along the way. But at the end of the day, folks, it all started with Iron Man. And Iron Man being one of two movies in the MCU, the other which being Spider-Man Homecoming, ironically enough, that doesn't have a commentary track. We figured on the eve of Infinity War, let's gather and do a fan commentary on this now legendary piece of ashore blockbuster filmmaking.
Yeah.
Certainly. So, Dragon, my God, I remember this was a slow burn of a movie for me. I saw it a couple times in theaters over the summer it came out. I do remember it. It was like one of those movies that came out in May and it was still in theaters when school was back in session in August. It was like it stayed around a while, but it first was a slow burn for me because I remember I kind of felt like the movie needed more Iron Man in it. Like the movie was kind of like it was like a really long origin story kind of build up to it. Like basically my first initial reaction to it was, well, it was like a way more fun version of the Incredible Hulk or I'm sorry, of Hulk 2003. But Dragon, of course, I think the interesting thing is this movie is kind of like a pop culture it's like a museum piece in a way. Like this is a fascinating case study of like looking back and rewatching this movie today, Dragon. It's fascinating to see how many seeds were planted. It's not just the Avengers thing. It's just kind of the general tone of the MCU and the Easter eggs and the level of quality in the casting and the characters that we have that are still around to this day. This is just it's just really interesting to just go back and watch it and just see how well tied together this is to the overall vibe that the MCU carries forward to this day. So I'm really excited to explore it in a conversational manner.
Right. For me, I've said this before, but I had like the best viewing experience ever with Iron Man back in 2008. I did simply. It was I saw it when I went to Florida back when I used to go almost regularly, and I saw it, and I never had seen a movie on City Walk before, and
Oh, nice.
I went in there. I didn't know there was a movie theater after all the other years I had been there. So I went in there. It's a well constructed building. It has all these different layers and has like kind of the best cardboard standees and everything. Like there was like a almost like a Hulk statue for the Incredible Hulk film. I mean, there was so much, and this place had all. It was a great draw. It was a great appeal. I've only seen two movies at this place in all my years going to City Walk because of this viewing experience. I saw Iron Man. I saw Men in Black 3. Both really great viewing experiences. Both
Oh,
good.
Men in Black is especially cool because that is
No,
the best ride in Universal Studios for me.
what I'm saying. So point is, I saw Iron Man. I was like, they even got the. I saw Iron Man. It was just this wonderful viewing experience. The third act specifically of Iron Man just complemented like the park atmosphere so well, and that's why no matter what anyone says of the third act, I'm always have that gleam of like, I mean, come on though, it feels like
Okay, Dragon, look. I completely understand personal nostalgia. I completely get that. However, yeah, we'll talk about that third act.
I'm not ignorant. Look, I get it. All right, I get it. I'm just saying that I do find there's a silver lining, and I would put up a defense for the third act just out of necessity. I would put up a logistical third defense, and we'll get there. Anyway, the point is, I mean, this is I have a lot of personal connection with this film because again, it kicks off the MCU. It was during that kind of in the Dark Knight had stolen that year, but at the same time, Iron Man
Oh
stole
yeah,
it.
Dragon. It was like this was. It's kind of funny. Like let's. I feel like an interesting.
There were four big superhero films in 2008 were as follows, folks. Okay, you had Iron Man started off the summer movie season. Then you had I'm trying to remember. I know there was Hellboy. You had the Iron Man. You had Hellboy 2. You had the Dark Knight, the Incredible Hulk, and I guess technically you also had Punisher Warzone. So you had five. You had five. Yeah. Again, I'll defend Punisher Warzone. I mean, you had five solid film choices that year. Again, I love Hellboy too, and at that year, I'm just saying, blowing your mind with like two MCU films within the same year. Hulk and Iron Man, two very iconic ones, who again very similar to real life. They came out in close proximity to each other. I mean, it was a embarrassment of riches in 2008.
And Dragon, I just think an interesting kind of discussion of where we at in the or of where we're at in the timeline currently in 2018 is I feel like The Dark Knight was the big, huge, like pantheon cultural event of that summer. And there's no question that Infinity War is. I feel like in the grand spectrum of thing, I'm almost expecting Black Panther to be the stronger overall movie. But Infinity War is certainly the bigger blockbuster event, which is saying something considering how big Black Panther was.
Certainly.
So I just think it's interesting that kind of the tables have turned now, and Infinity War is kind of just this cultural milestone. Dragon, I don't know. I have you heard about the situation with Forbes?
You know what's so funny? Crap. I forget if it was you or if it was I was took part in a live show today, and it was either a live show or you. I was warned about Forbes. I guess it
Yeah, so
wasn't.
Forbes brilliantly published an article that was just like, "Hey, kiddies, get all the Infinity War spoilers. Like, we're not even going to be vague about it. It's just like all the spoilers."
God.
And so,
I,
like thousands of people had the movie ruined for them, Dragon, because trolls and
I
internet
almost
chat
looked
boards
into
and
something.
things.
I was in danger of happening upon that Forbes by accident because I was on Kevin. I checked out Kevin Smith's Twitter, and there apparently Forbes made a joke about Kevin Smith and spoilers, and that's why again he posted something. So I didn't look into it. I just saw Kevin Smith's name and Forbes associated. I remember that it's like that dire warning from the future of like, no, don't look at Forbes. Don't look at Forbes. And it was like before I continued to read, I was like, no. It's like the Flash, just the for Justice League comparison. It's like the Flash. It's like the Flash. Am I too soon? Anyway, so let me finish. My Iron Man thoughts very simply. One last detail is important is that this is the movie that really, in the collective consciousness, my father, he's, yeah, he likes the original Richard Donner Superman film as much as everyone does. Like when you think of superhero movie, again, this is before Dark Knight. You're thinking, uh, you think the classics like Superman as to what his favorite superhero was. But I mean, the thing that always connected me to Iron Man, the first Iron Man specifically, is again I had such a great viewing experience with it. My family was all there too. Like even my grandfather, who he hates he's terrified of plane travel. It was like the last time he went to Florida.
Oh.
And I mean that I'm just saying it was like he doesn't fly anymore, so he won't go on. Again, I haven't.
I can relate to that. I mean, it's I'm definitely a traveler, but flying is not the funnest thing in the world.
Anyway, so my point is, my father, it was kind of the bonding experience I have with Iron Man is that turned my father into a full fledged superhero fan. He loves Marvel, and Iron Man is his totem. It's like as much as Batman is my totem, Iron Man is his totem in terms of like what he goes gaga for Iron Man because he's also kind of he's always about science improvement and like the gadgetry and more of like technologies for the future. I think that's what kind of drew him to Iron Man. So the point is like where at the Marvel side of things, I'm always siding on Cap, but at the same time, he's firmly on Team Iron Man until the end of time. He adores Iron Man. He loves the MC. So this is the film that really kind of let my father into my universe in a way, and that's kind of
that's awesome, man.
I mean, Iron Man will always have the first time. Will always have that special place in my heart for that reason. Plus it was in like probably the most magical place from my childhood in Florida. Just all those memories. It was like kind of like a perfect moment of film for me with the MCU. It was just that first Iron Man show. And so it's really poetic that we're going back 10 years ago to Iron Man, seeing where we're at now with it, just kind of rounding out. And again, folks, are bringing that perspective in with this commentary. So sorry if you want to just go in blind on this. It's kind of impossible. At this point in time, we're going to read into like how far we've traveled within this commentary, just like seeing like the seeds being planted, like how far it's gone, all that stuff. So buckle up.
Okay, folks. Or do you have any background, Dragon, or do you want to just dive into it?
Well, I have back. I'm going to go through as quickly as I
Okay.
can here. Okay, folks. So here's the background. Here's what gets us Iron Man. It has a really fascinating background story. So we had to touch a little bit on the formation of Marvel Studios. And again, I figured 10 years in the making, we got to go over the posterior, like where it all started. So Marvel Studios really comes into the fray in 2004. You see, 2004, Marvel Studios is formed by Avi Arad and Kevin Feige. Again, it's kind of a team mentality, and Kevin Feige started off as Avi Arad's assistant. Avi Arad, he struck it into the movie industry from Toy Biz. He was basically a toy industry guy who took over the films, and he basically gave us the Spider-Man movies, the Raimi Spider-Man movies, the Fantastic Four. He's had a hand in all the Marvel films, and then he's basically bridging into Marvel Studios. And they secured the film rights to 10 properties, including the Avengers, Captain America, Ant-Man. It's like a lot of stuff that some of the rights they've lost, and that was just the original arrangement. So the plan, simply put, the plan was to do a Marvel Cinematic Universe with a number of films as a fallback. So they had 10 rights secured, so just in case they couldn't connect it, they could do what they've been doing before with, like Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, just a number of, okay, here's like a Marvel film and another Marvel film in case we can't connect it, assuming the first movie isn't successful. So while they're still selecting their first movie, you got to remember, 90s Marvel, as we've experienced with the Roger Corman Fantastic Four days and everything, Marvel sold the rights. So they sold their Iron Man rights back in the 90s. So Iron Man got sold. It's so funny. Iron Man was
That at
basically
one point it was going to be a Tom Cruise movie.
exactly. That's what I'm saying. So Tiki, you got to bear in mind, Iron Man, out of all the Marvel characters, like possibly it's between Iron Man and Thor, was like the film probably no one wanted to touch. No one wanted Iron Man because Iron Man, he's really hard to bring to screen credibly after a movie like Steel comes out.
Oh God. Ooh.
I
Yeah.
mean, I know it was probably, I think it was being shopped around before Steel, but regardless, like Steel coming out did not help the cause. So
Mhm.
Iron Man, the rights went all over the place. At first, it went to Universal, which of course is where the Hulk went. Then it went to Fox, and Fox, they were booming at the time, so they were like, we have too many heroes. We don't have room for this guy. So I'm serious. They kicked around. So then they went to New Line. New Line was starting to accumulate superhero properties. But, they had Blade. I believe they had Blade.
Yeah, they have Blade. Yeah.
Yeah, they had Blade. So they were starting to kind of build their own catalog like Fox. Essentially, New Line, they get a lot of traction. And you see the reason it took
The Lord of the Rings, which not comic books, but definitely a franchise.
certainly, and again, as Tiki said, 98, it got traction as the years went on. Like in 98, Tom Cruise was attached, he's producing it and talks to the star. And then in 2004 with New Line, they got really close to making it with Nick Cassavetes, the guy who directed The Notebook. He was going to do it. And
That would have been different.
they had all sorts of crazy ideas in the fray. Like Stan Lee even wrote a script. I mean, there's a whole bunch of crazy MODOK was going to be the bad guy, and then they had the most bizarre idea. The most bizarre idea was Howard Stark was going to be alive, and he was going to turn into the bad guy in like the third act, in wearing a War Machine armor.
Oh God!
I kid you not. That's who. Look,
that's a really weird combination.
That's what I hear, and I'm just saying. After watching things like The Death of Superman Lives, where you see how when scripts are given to non-comic book guys and basically people of the times, because this went to like the Smallville writers. This went to all sorts of writers who were trendy at the time, and it got shopped around. They're thinking of like new edgy ideas and things at that point in time. So the point is, a lot of crazy ideas from all over the place. It eventually, New Line, just after 2004, and they had Cassavetes as a director. He was slated, and they were going to do it, and they just like kind of fell through for the simple reason that, again, took so long because bringing the suit and the sci-fi qualities to life was the biggest challenge and the biggest turnoff to the project. So it goes back to Marvel, hilariously enough. Like, we can't do anything with it. Take it back. So this is in 2005. So again, like, this is when Marvel Studios, they're starting to formulate their game plan. Iron Man falls back into their laps, and like a rights they didn't have. They weren't going to. Again, Iron Man was either going to be lumped into the Avengers or they didn't have him. He falls into their laps. Okay, we have our starting place, Iron Man. So post Daredevil, again, it's all relative, folks. All these studios, it's relative. So Jon Favreau, who was in Daredevil from 2003, he wanted to do another Marvel film with Avi Arad because he had such a good time on Daredevil, and he's a good Foggy Nelson in Daredevil.
Hmm.
He wanted Jon Favreau, who's also a director in his own right, actor and director in his own right. He wanted to do a story about reinvention, about he wanted to do a story about reinvention, basically about making a self-discovery and kind of making a change, basically the Tony Stark arc. That's what he wanted to do as a story, and he wanted to do it as essentially the most expensive student film you'd ever seen. He wanted to do like an expensive student film indie approach to a superhero movie. So that was his mentality, that was his mantra, and it all came together when he cast Robert Downey Jr. in the part. He was like the only guy who made the project click together, and he cast him specifically for his past, all the stuff that Downey Jr. was infamous for and had to live down. He thought, this guy, he's lived the Tony Stark experience. I got to get this guy. He had to sell Marvel on because Marvel's like, Downey Jr. Have you heard what's happened to this guy? We can't cast him. What's wrong with you, Favreau?
Dragon, I knew Downey Jr. from a couple things before this movie, specifically Zodiac. Actually, Zodiac was really because as a young lad, as a high schooler, I was really into David Fincher, and so he popped up on my radar, and so I kind of knew about his backstory. So when I heard about that, I was just like, oh, that's perfect, Dragon. It was definitely for me. I was like, you know. I could see it right away. I knew he'd be a perfect Tony Stark before I even saw the movie.
Here's the thing, I knew him from obscure things, but I didn't know it was Robert Downey Jr. As I afterwards, I found I placed the name to the face, like, oh, I've seen that guy before. And I saw him in Weird Science, saw him in Easy Money. He was the artsy friend in Easy Money, and I think the biggest thing, the most current at that time, 2006, I saw him in The Shaggy Dog.
Oh God, really? I never knew he was in Shaggy Dog.
He's the bad guy in Shaggy Dog.
Oh man,
he's a rich guy too. So it's anyway. So production starts. It's a 2-year production in 2006 to 2007. They brought in. Here's where Favreau earns all the points in the world. Here, this is Favreau after Zathura. So he's done Zathura, which he had a good time with, and it was kind of a heavy effects movie, and notably had a robot in it. So he goes to his guy Stan Winston and Stan Winston and crew from Zathura, and they're very eager because they've been dying to make like a very kind of robotic centric film. So they're very much looking forward to Iron Man effects and everything. So they bring in effects houses like ILM, the Embassy, the Orphanage, which I'll point out when we get into the movie. And the smartest move that Favreau made, and this is what separates Favreau from kind of the superhero films of the time beforehand. He brought in the Iron Man writers like Brian Michael Bendis, Mark Millar, and Joe Quesada for input. And there were more writers. I'm just saying those are the 3 most notable. And he got them in there, brought them in for input. Like Miller gave him advice to not use don't use his arch enemy, the Mandarin, out of the gate. It's gonna be a hard sell. Don't do that. Don't just start with the Mandarin. You got to build to that. So
you ultimately do it. Make it a big fake out.
It's really interesting thinking about it, because Favreau did have a take on the Mandarin. I doubt that his take was what we went with the Shane Black Mandarin. That's the thing. I wonder what his take would have been. Anyway, so lastly, and this is, I guess, is kind of really important, kind of tying into more stuff this year. Iron Man, you gotta remember, at Marvel at the time, Spider-Man's the flagship character. Again, the tables turned so much after the movie came out, but Iron Man was not a big character to the public. A lot of people, just like myself included, I knew the gimmick, I knew the visual, I didn't know anything about the guy except for like cursory glances from the animated series and that one guest spot in Spider-Man. Like I knew he was a guy in a suit, but a lot of people thought he might have been a robot.
Mm-hmm.
So Tim Miller and Blur Studios, of course, Tim Miller, director of the first Deadpool, has the effects studio, did the Arkham game test footage. Marvel asked him to do a short to build awareness in Iron Man. You can find this on YouTube. He did. Just type in Spider-Man, Hulk, Iron Man animated short, or just like Tim Miller, Blur Studios test footage. You'll find it. Basically, did this awesome animated short on Iron Man and the Hulk, just to show, basically give you a sell of what Iron Man was without kind of the Downey Jr. charm, but just give you a sense of, okay, that's who Iron Man is, and he looks awesome.
Right.
They build awareness, of course, like a year before. Then next year, movie comes out, big success. The MCU, Feige gets promoted at this time. He gets promoted because Avi Arad, he kind of left the business as the movie was about to come out, and Fahey kind of took Avi Arad's place, and that's why Fahey's the top dog right now, and why Avi Arad's only there in kind of a cursory sense, and like, hey, I was involved in the making of Iron Man. And then he went to, Spider-Man. Basically, he was attached to the successes and failures of Spider-Man through the Amazing franchise. And so again, Fahey's MCU idea, and again, he did have the core idea of what the MCU was about connecting. That was all Fahey. I want to make that clear. That was Fahey. Arad was very much kind of in the corporate sense of things. Fahey was like, let's connect and let's do the core comic idea. And he got his promotion, got everything approved, and it all worked out. All worked out gangbusters for everybody. And we all lived happily ever after, all the way to infinity, where everybody died.
Spoilers, Dragon. Jeez.
Oh, no, I'm kidding. Come on. They're not going to.
Honestly, Dragon, I really don't think it's outside of the realm of possibility that the movie literally ends with the finger snap.
To be fair, again, folks, if we hear anyone saying, just so no one gets freaked out, right? Infinity Gauntlet, the book, it's like Thanos, he could kill everyone and bring everybody back with a snap of his finger. So don't get too worried, all right? I'm just saying that's a joke based on the book, all right? We have no Forbes, folks. No Forbes, dire warning from the future, Graham. Don't worry.
All right. So, folks, we're going to do our level best to make this a podcast that you can listen to without having seen the movie. However, if you want to see the movie and listen along with us, go ahead and get your copy to timestamp 00. All right, you ready to go, Dragon? We'll count up to 3, and then we will say go and press play. Just like
Ready.
A Weapon 2.
Got it.
Okay, let's do it, folks. Iron Man in 1, 2, 3, go!
Yes, Paramount. They've gone so far.
And it's really interesting to me that that the first Iron Man movie was specifically Paramount, because we associate everything with the MCU so much with Disney that, to me, Dragon, the really interesting thing with the MCU is that I honestly didn't have a ton of faith in it back in the day. I think First Avenger was the one that really set it up for me. First Avenger was the one that really sold me on everything. But, with Thor and with Incredible Hulk, I was just kind of like, all right, these are decent movies, but I kind of, you mentioned, like, it almost sort of feels like, all right, here's a Ghost Rider, here's a Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer. They're standalone movies, So the idea of a cinematic universe really didn't capture my attention until First Avenger. First Avenger was like where, but this isn't about First Avenger. I'm just saying, kind of to put my mind, I was very skeptical about the idea of a cinematic universe at first.
So this opening, it's very clever how we're doing the origin right at the gate to capture the surprise and the immediacy of everything, of an event that that begins Tony's arc, very suddenly. And again, like we get, it was such a smart choice to kind of start off, and the strategic story purpose for this is that we build sympathy for Tony. So when we see him doing likable things in the lead up to this, we're going to have, it has like a built-in like kind of cushion of like, okay, well, something really bad happens to him, so you can get away with him having bad behavior. So he gets kind of a comeuppance, and you're going to root for him. He's in the hands of terrorists, essentially. So it's like, okay, he's not all bad.
Dragon, tell me when we're at timestamp 241, because I kind of lagged when I pressed play and I had to skip ahead a little bit. So right. Timestamp 241.
All right. Let's see. Also, of course, the choice of kind of rock and heavy metal music, that's very befitting of Iron Man. Again, the metal.
It was way too overdone in Iron Man 2, though.
It was. I mean, all they needed was like the one AC/DC song, and then I think the rest was, well, I don't know. It's up to. They had a Richard Sherman song, so they kind of balanced it out to an extent. I don't know. So, of course, this is all improvised between him and the soldiers, by the way. There's a lot of improv in this movie.
I love the gang sign moment.
It was actually part of the test screening for Downey Jr. He had this and a few other scenes that the tests for. And now.
Okay.
So again, like the immediacy of this, and again, just reflecting, kind of catching the audience off guard, and again, it's reflecting kind of what Tony's going through in the moment for you, the audience, to be kind of in Tony's space. Right, it's such an enclosed like location, and the Humvee.
Mm-hmm. I love how the tone just shifts so dramatically. It's just like, okay, we're going from, jokey, like, let's get a selfie with them, ha ha ha, to, okay, this is a life or death situation, and clearly they're on the side of death.
And again, while the comedy is kind of past right now, I do love that we do see kind of he's not just like a supercilious arms dealer. There's a humanity with the military. But you have like you have a humanizing moment with the military, and shows that he was really friendly with people, and that he's not an arms dealer like a negative sense. He's an arms dealer in a necessary sense. Like, yeah, you would want any arms dealers for the military to be kind of nice guys like this. At least be pleasant to the military. So
big symbol with the Stark Industries bomb, kind of putting him in the position.
It's the poetic symbol of a man struck down by his own weapon, Tiki. It's still such a powerful idea. It's the defining origin of Iron Man. It still has so much heft. And again, I love how it looks. I've always, the moment in that theater, Tiki, when I saw it for the first time, when you see the shrapnel and you see the blood, and then under the shirt, just, oh my God. And it's fitting into that symbol, that imagery of, he's going to have like an arc reactor there in the future. We're seeing kind of where the blood is kind of forming for the arc reactor. So it's great. Now, by the way, the Afghanistan update, that is from the comics, because in recent years, when they redid the Iron Man origin for the extremist stuff, which again we saw kind of come to fruition with Iron Man 3, that's from the most popular Iron Man writer, Warren Ellis.
Yes.
That was when he basically did kind of the update from the Vietnam War to like Afghanistan. For years, like Tony Stark would have been like way past his 50s.
So I love that we basically start with an exposition dump that literally is frivolous, and Tony Stark like gives away the statue, the trophy that he gets, for this award, but it's such an efficient, like, all right, this is everything you need to know about this guy in a nutshell.
I mean, I love that this incredible
way.
This Incredible Hulk do economize their story very well in the openings. How we have the opening credits, Incredible Hulk, that kind of summarize, okay, here's the origin, here's the TV show premise, you got it all there. In this case, it's like, okay, here's generally what you need to know about Stark Industries, and basically some setup for later. And I love this Rolling Stones cover about Tony Stark wants to save the world. I love that it's kind of this false image of what it's the false PR image of what Tony's trying to do. Again, he means it, but it foreshadows Tony going from kind of a PR poster boy to kind of what his arc is going to be to truly try to save the world. So that's kind of cool.
And here we have the longest running MCU actor of them all, folks. God. Who stuck with us through thick and thin.
The sad fact of the matter is, Dummy and you, the two robots that assist Iron Man, have been in more movies than Terrence Howard.
Oh man. I like Terrence Howard though. I think he did a really good job in this role.
Me too. I'm with you there. I did enjoy Terrence Howard. Again, the first watch, I was like, yeah, I could buy him as role. He's a good friend of Tony Stark. He's got kind of the ties there. He's very helpful.
I think it's a situation where I'd be really interested to see the alternate take where we got all the development with War Machine, that Don Cheadle kind of took over with Terrence Howard, because we associate him more with Don Cheadle, of course, but yeah, I know I would have been interested to see Terrence Howard's take on it.
And I tell you, I we like Don Cheadle because we had more time with him, but I got to tell you, you hear conflicting things about Terrence Howard, in that he basically he may have not had the best of experiences on set. You look at the features. I mean, I get a sense that Favreau loves the character of Rhodey and War Machine, but again, you have no bearing of how he liked working with Terrence Howard, though. That's the thing. You have no idea if you liked working with him or not. We just know that he loved the character. And everyone on this film, by the way, loves War Machine. They love the visual of War Machine with the Gatling gun. They tried putting the Gatling gun on Iron Man just to get the homage to War Machine or get it set up. So, I mean, they're big War Machine fans all over this production. Okay, so by the way, I love the music. So the music here, it's so funny. I think I told you this before. I'd imagine they took the '60s Iron Man cartoon theme. Back when Marvel was doing the cartoons in like '66.
Yeah.
And what they do is they have the Iron Man like Tony Stark has the hottest steels. Da, 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 da. They take the old jingle for Iron Man, like the whole like Captain America wields the mighty shield. They had a whole bunch of those for the Marvel characters, and they take Iron Man's and they have it. It's a theme, but they play a different way. So here's like the Vegas version of it. You have the James Bond version with Christine Everhart coming up, and then later on you have the cell phone version on Rhodey's phone. So it's hilarious. I love how we work it in there.
Nice.
Great. Christine Everhart. So she in real life, it's a wonderful Leslie Bibb, and she is married to Sam Rockwell in real life.
Sam Rockwell is like one of my top 5 people that I'd like to see in MCU again.
Yeah, and again, they have a built-in thing, especially with the Netflix shows. They've built up the reputation of Justin Hammer, so there's always an opening for Hammer. Actually, he remember Tiki. He's in Seagate. He's in the same prison that Luke Cage was at.
Yeah, I remember. I remember.
So so let's see. Oh yeah, so Leslie Bibb here. Yeah, they were dating at the time they're making the movie, and now they're married. I remember he thanked her at the Oscars this year. It was kind of cool.
Hmm.
I do like this. I like how there might be a pun with Everhart being the name because I like that she's kind of a reminder of his conscience. You know, it's kind of the role she serves. She's confronting him with the facts. And more on that later. But a little fun fact about Sam Rockwell. I want to say he was in consideration for Tony Stark before Downey Jr.
I could totally see it.
I imagine that's why Leslie Bibb was cast in the role because they were dating and she kind of got stuck in the role and then Rockwell's out. So I think that's fun memory for Leslie Bibb years later, I suppose.
But hey, Sam Rockwell got to play one of the best second tier MCU villains, so there's that.
It's true.
And here we have the first vocal appearance of Paul Bettany as Jarvis, and I got to say, Dragon, watching that today, it kind of sent a chill down my spine. Like, oh, how far we've come! Like, man, like right from the get go.
Just because Kristen Everhart's still on screen, I just want to reference the scene they just had, which was another like kind of a test. It was like another screen test of Downey Jr. interacting with. It's like an audition scene almost, where I love that Tony had a point with Howard Stark's philosophy, and again, Iron Man 2 was all about that point about having a bigger stick than the other guy.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, there's a bit of a Captain America tie-in with that about the deterrent of it all, and again, like kind of confronting Tony about that philosophy. So it's we're saying the Howard Stark kind of tie-in of it all with Captain America. So again, we've been building. They're setting the pieces this early.
The Howard Stark thing was probably the best element of Iron Man 2, like that and Justin Hammer.
That's true. So they picked Malibu over New York because again, traditionally, as we see in the Avengers film, Tony Stark's based in New York. He has a whole building in New York. They went with Malibu because Favreau was thinking, we've seen New York done already in 3 separate superhero movies. We've seen it done in Spider-Man, X-Men, and Daredevil. Let's do something different. Let's go to Malibu. It's Tony Stark. He's kind of big. He's kind of big Hollywood, kind of very rock star-esque. Might as well put him in L.A.
Yeah, definitely fits the personality.
Yeah.
Now, Dragon, I'm sure you as a gadget lover just absolutely that's a big part of your love for this movie because one of the things I like, I think this movie holds up a lot more as an adult than when I saw it as a high schooler. Because as a high schooler, I was just like, I want to see more Iron Man. I want to see more Iron Man kicking ass and fighting people. As an adult, I appreciate all the nuance and all the tinkering and stuff where we really get to see all the process of making Iron Man come to life. It's really just a gradual transition. Yeah. And I gotta say, that's one of the few things that this movie kind of differentiates itself from the rest of the MCU, where I feel like as the MCU went on, we got crazier, more elaborate, and we just went at such a breakneck pace with things. Iron Man is one of the more nuanced and slower paced MCU movies to kick things off with. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, certainly. Again, I think you'll notice, especially by the end. I mean, Iron Man does serve. Again, they were prepared for an MCU plan, but they had the fallback. So the idea is they wanted to make a good one-shot Iron Man film. This does feel very self-contained to an extent. Where again, it has an open ending, but at the same time, the movie is very. It's like you see Tony's arcs, even if you didn't see the grand arc that they had in the works. Again, I'm not saying they didn't have it all in the works, but I'm just saying they had a game plan. Their plan was to go from this to Avengers. That was the main genesis of what the plan was at the time. And again, it does serve Tony's arc and does show like a man. Again, it's what Favreau wanted to make in the movie. It shows a man being woken up to what his world really is, and kind of making a proactive change. So yeah. There's so much to kind of comment on this.
Yeah, it goes by really fast too. Like it's
So I mean, just to mention it, you have Paltrow as Gwyneth Paltrow as Pepper Potts. This is I think she's best here, and I think she's best here. She's also well utilized in Avengers and Spider-Man: Homecoming. I think those are the 3 best examples of her is Pepper Potts. Again, here being kind of the king of all those.
Right. I feel like with Iron Man 2, they just went a little too trigger happy with the hey, everyone loves Tony's back and forth dynamic with Pepper, so let's do a lot of that.
And the problem with Iron Man 2 is there's a lot of we're trying to capture lightning in a bottle again. And one of that
Uh-huh.
element right there is like it doesn't have the same spark as in the first movie, and then they try to evolve it with the third movie where Pepper Potts becomes a little too important.
Exactly, exactly. So I love the editing in this movie, and one of my favorite cuts is like Rhodey's just like, no, I'm not drinking tonight, nothing for me. And then it cuts to like just him in a drunken stupor. I'm a big fan of that kind of comedy.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, Terrence Howard as like older Gerald from Hey Arnold. I could buy it.
Oh man. Oh god. Okay, that's another pitch we need to get on is like the Hey Arnold reunion movie.
Sure.
Didn't
A
we
few
already
things.
have a Helga in mind?
Uh, yeah, but I remember we also had a younger Helga too. I'm just trying to think of who the older Helga was, but I let's not dwell on that now.
All right.
Yeah, let's see. Oh yes. You're right. That the editing's the editing's really good here. Just to kind of go back to like John Favreau, I love that he plays Happy Hogan. Happy Hogan, kind of the boxer who saved Tony's life and kind of rewarded him by making him his bodyguard. Kind of treating Happy nice, and they developed a rapport and kind of a respect for each other, which is kind of a nice little
Happy
side
Hogan,
story.
just another thing that, he's been around since the beginning, and we just saw him in one of the most recent MCU movies. It's like,
Yeah.
it's crazy to track all this.
Okay, this is fun. Now, again, the mentality on this film, Tiki, was they're really free to improv because the worry was we got to nail down the story and we got to nail down the action in this film. So we're gonna allow our actor, specifically Downey Jr., has such a gift for the gab when it comes to improv.
Uh-huh.
He'll run with this. The Jericho speech right here, which I love the Jericho speech. I love, and I can't really say it's written because again he's just improvising. He's doing such a great line with this whole "That's how Dad did it. That's how America does it." And it's worked out pretty well so far. I love that line.
Uh-huh.
And again, such a well crafted such a well crafted scene with that. And again, he's free to improv, and again, it's showing that great. It's I'm just saying that Jericho's speech. It's so much fun, and again, it kind of shows you now having seen Agent Carter and kind of gotten to know Howard Stark a little. You get to see where he gets his theatricality from with that. You get to see kind of the links with Howard Stark there.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, Dragon. I feel like Howard Stark is Walt Disney, and in a lot of ways, Tony Stark is kind of Michael Eisner.
I think you're kind of right. I think you're right.
Like, Tony Stark is a little bit more of a shrewd businessman, but damn it, he's trying to pull
Well,
off the
if
Uncle
he's
Walt
not
vibe.
Michael Eisner, then Obadiah Stane absolutely is Michael Eisner.
Oh, Obadiah Stane. Yeah, let's talk about Stane because we kind
Yeah, that's
of,
a big. We're sidestepping a lot of
yeah.
stuff, folks. We're going to circle back to a lot of this,
Uh,
but yeah, here's what I like. I love that Obadiah Stane is. I like that he's just treated as the businessman confident. Like that we treat him almost like a Lucius Fox in the beginning. I don't. He doesn't read like uber bad guy to me at the top. You even rewatch. He's like, yeah, he's played pretty likable or
and
relatable.
of
He's
course,
just
it's Jeff Bridges, and Jeff Bridges is the dude, man. You know what I mean? It's like it's a very like deceptive casting choice.
And by the way, and that's something cool on the rewatch here. After all these years, I never really picked up on this, but Obadiah Stane, when he calls him there, that's him verifying Tony's location for the terrorist, as we find out later on, to abduct him. So that's why he calls him
Oh,
in that moment.
nice, nice.
That's him verifying that okay, yeah, he's in position. You guys move now, because again, they wanted him to kill him in that case again, except for later in the movie. So let's see. Oh yeah, this also has grossed me out, like him removing
Oh
the like
yeah,
kind of
oh yeah. This is a big gross out
with
moment.
the
The
tube
tube
up
up
the
the
nose, like
nose.
the weird kind of nose catheter or whatever that is. Always scared me when I was watching the theater that first time. Here's one of my favorite characters in this film. He's no Stanley Tucci, but my God, Sean Toom as Yinsen, he's fantastic. And again, he's such a pivotal character, and in the Iron Man origin too, because it's not Tony Stark alone who develops this. We do follow it to a great extent here. Tony Stark, he's captured by what was the Vietnamese. There are two guys, and was Tony and Yinsen who had to kind of work together to get out of the prison. And as we find out, Yinsen, he's not so lucky.
Uh-huh.
I love this visual here, and I love just again the gadgetry of it all with the arc reactors. I love that the arc is mirrored also in the arc reactor, and I love that
But
you
it's
have like
cool that it's cool that the thing that comes to define Tony's superpower is it first almost presented as body horror.
exactly. I love that. It's at its base level. It's an electromagnet. It's an electromagnet powered by a car battery. It's so archaic, but again, archaic but useful. And I love how this gets upgraded through the movie as one of my favorite devices in the movie. We each act is defined by an Iron Man armor.
Mm-hmm.
They track. You can track that. You can also track a little with the arc. Also, I love this too. I love the little. I've always loved this bit where Yinsen tosses him, a little bottle of shrapnel. It's kind of a good another symbol, like, hey, this is what you built into your weapons. That's what's killing you. You're holding in your hand right now, and Sean Toomey's just so excellent in this scene here, where again he's like, there's a levity about him, but at the same time, again, he's very much if Christian Everhart is in his conscience, then absolutely Yinsen is the main source
Oh
of that.
God, please get that. With all due respect to Christine Everhart, this guy is his conscious.
Well, okay, I'll say let me rephrase. I mean, absolutely, Yinsen's the conscience. I was losing the word for what I was looking for Everhart because later on I have it down there. Later on, Everhart's more of the she's the reminder. She's the reminder. He's the conscience. So he's basically putting things in perspective for Tony right here. So I mean, Tony, he's about to get. Of course, there's some great setup for Iron Man 3 with Yinsen too, where again we're going to see the conference that he's talking about meeting him at in Iron Man 3, which is I love how they called that back.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, firsthand in the story here, Tony is humbled. I'm jumping ahead here to try to stay above the pact here. So Tony's about to be humbled firsthand by seeing his weapons directly in the wrong hands and see that his legacy is not a legacy of like kind of technological improvement and what he thinks has been helping the world and just kind of being leading a carefree existence because of that. In reality, he learns that, Ian is when talking about the reality things, he learns that Everhart's claims were very well founded. And that, no, yeah, we're profiteering right now. That's why you have lived in such a leisurely lifestyle. It's not just like, hey, I'm actually helping. Well, you're helping, but you're not accountable, and that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I love this right here. It goes by in a flash of when he's being waterboarded here, when he's being drowned. You'll notice there's a brief flash of and again on the rewatch I finally put this together because you hear Pepper yelling Tony because he's thinking of two things. He's thinking of Pepper, and the quick flashes that you got were of him crafting the arc reactor. He gets the idea as the electromagnet short circuits in that moment, and we cut to a brief like blink and you miss it shot of like prototype stages of the arc reactor. He's thinking of like, okay, I got to improve this thing so it doesn't conk out on me like in the water. So it's like those little touches that go a long way. That little flash of Tony thinking about improving things and his own again and personal life too.
Yeah, sure. And at the end of the day, this movie is all about redemption. We just recorded a Disney debate where I made a very good argument for Tony Stark being the best kind of like the one you would kind of look up to as a role model, specifically because he addresses his own flaws and tries to learn from them.
Now this guy, I believe it's Abu Kahar, this terrorist here, and in the comics it was another guy. There was again, he's based off like a kind of the cruel, sadistic taskmaster who gave Tony the task here, and this is exactly what that scene was in the comic here, where he's saying, like, "You do this, I'll let you go." And I love that we added this moment between him and Yinsen here, where Yinsen doesn't translate this part, but he says, "No, he won't," because again, Tony and Yinsen are smart enough to realize that no, we're dead anyway. They're not going to let us go. We're going to be, it's them being smart to realize the severity of the situation. Now this is fun here. Now Robert Downey Jr. again, this is why you get him for the part here. He's bringing a lot of real life experience to this because he, in real life, he's been inside a few he's been inside a few jails from time to time, and he brought like as you'll see in the cave setting here, they play backgammon. They're having like tea and coffee made from socks. Made using socks as the coffee filter. It's all stuff that Danny did learn while incarcerated. Time. And
this is one of my favorite Marvel origin stories, Dragon. It's right up there with Raimi's Spider-Man 1 because In fact, it's kind of like it's kind of like Raimi Spider-Man 1, of course, is the big nostalgic thing for me, but this one is just I love how well told it is, where of course we get the out of sync timeline and we also get the whole just the ingenuity of it. It's not something that usually see in a superhero movie. Like, he's trapped in a cave. He needs to use like bare bones resources. He has to develop this thing literally under the watchful eye of the enemy. It's such an interesting arc. I feel like it's a good mission statement of the MCU, where it's like, okay, we are going to have an Uncle Ben style mentor figure who dies at the end of the first act, yes, but we're going to do a lot of new things with that.
Yeah, you got to remember, Tiki. This I mentioned this a little bit with Spider-Man: Homecoming. I really meant it for this, where Iron Man is one of the one of the superhero films that really defined superhero origin 101. It's like the evolution of that, because you had Superman 78, you had Raimi Spider-Man, and then you have this. This kind of redefined the
Oh
playbook
yeah.
on the superhero origin. So again, like this is like one of the, and of course you have the ones like Batman Begins kind of bridging like in different directions at this kind of a similar time. But again,
And of
Iron Man
course,
being
Doctor Strange pretty much used this as a blueprint down the line.
exactly, that's what I'm saying. So again, you have like the grand Marvel playbook that again people have deviated from now and again, but again, primarily like kind of the DNA of the MCU's formula for success is Iron Man.
Mhm.
So again, like right here, I love this. This is kind of the moment of choice for Tony. He's in a hopeless situation. Again, kind of like Robert Downey Jr. in real life, where he has to kind of grab himself by the bootstraps and kind of be proactive in the situation to kind of again, just like the arc of are you going to get out of the situation, or Danny Jr. was. Again, I don't mean just the harp on like what again. Danny Jr. He's done so many great charitable things. He's been such a great guy. He's more made up for his past. Again, much like Tony Stark has in the MCU. I was saying it's an interesting comparison, but not just cast shadow on Downey, but to reflect that Downey many a time he'd been faced with like kind of like again he had faced a lot of drug addiction in his life, so he'd been faced with the decision like do you go to rehab or do you go to jail? And very much he's in a hopeless situation, or like a low of lows moment where, okay, am I going to be proactive to get out of this cave or not? Like you have like 2 weeks, they have like a week to live, essentially like a week or two to live with the arc reactor. What are you going to do? Well, you have you have two very important weeks. Well, it's a week. So you have you do a lot in a week then. So again, he's fixing the arc reactor, so he has more than a week right off the bat. So again, he's thinking forward. And that arc reactor, of course, is the big key to escape, because you got to remember that arc reactor is what powers the Iron Man suit. I don't mean just to spell out the simplicities here, folks. I'm just saying literally like the functionality of the suit is you attach like a wire to the parts of the armor and it will function. Again, it's like you are the power source. Again, some power to run your life. 50 lifetimes or something big for 15 minutes. Yeah. I love that palladium as we name drop in this scene. I love that palladium as the stabilizing element. Of course, is the element that's replacing Iron Man 2. I love that we're definitely establishing certain things like the palladium and the green gobbledygook that he's drinking later on. That again, it's all relative. And again, I think they had ideas of where to go with it, but they couldn't. They wanted to get the first movie done to an extent.
Yep. I'm sorry, I'm kind of like just swept up in this. It's just like
So again,
it's
here's
such
the
a watchable
backgammon.
movie. Yeah,
This is the
yeah.
backgammon I was talking about. Again, talk about the arc reactor for a moment. Again, in the creation of the arc reactor, and again, kind of our bad guy noticing the arc reactor in this moment. I love that the creation of the arc reactor thematically is him developing a heart. Again, I'm not the first to say this. I'm just saying the cleverness of making the arc reactor not only kind of his arc, but his arc uh, of like kind of Tony Stark finding a heart. And again, the heart symbolism of the arc reactor is important. And even in Infinity War, from the looks of things, we've redesigned the arc reactor to look a little bit more heart-like from what it seems. So again, we keep going with that.
Dragon, I think down the line, when Marvel gets really desperate for ideas, they're just going to start remaking movies with their own characters, Muppet style. So we need to see a Marvel Wizard of Oz. And so, like Cap needs a brain, you know, because he was frozen for all that time, so he's a little rusty. And then, you know, Tony Stark needs the heart.
And I guess Bruce Banner needs the courage.
Sure. Yeah, let's go with that. And then Thanos is the wizard.
Well, anyway.
So, like I said, it's just there's a really suspenseful element in this first act of like, okay, they have to build something for the enemy, but literally what they're building is their key to escape and a weapon against the enemy. There's just, you know, kind of such a cat and mouse element to that.
Yeah. Let's see. So yeah, we also established something for later on in that scene where he and Yinsen. Again, I like that we see we had a good passage of time where they're bonding and they're getting to know each other, and we see a friendship actually develop there, and we definitely see a payoff here where Yinsen is put in peril by the leader who we meet here, Rasa. Who, and the first time I saw this movie, I was thinking, "Are we doing Mandarin? But,
yeah, of course.
So in reality, and again, I'm extrapolating off of what Favreau might have been doing here, because again, it's never confirmed, but what they did confirm, Tiki, again. Basically, the Mandarin short is absolutely true in that they're going with the Ten Rings is an actual terrorist organization that does exist. In that Rasa is a member of the Ten Rings, so this is all part of the Ten Rings. And my assumption is that the real Mandarin, there are 10 terrorist cells as part of the Ten Rings, and each head of the terrorist cell probably has one of his rings. That probably
so it's like the better version of the hand.
Essentially, yeah. My assumption is that if they wanted to, and absolutely after like Thor Ragnarok, they can absolutely do this, or Doctor Strange, they can absolutely do this. Probably when the terrorist cells get together, you know, the Mandarin, he gets his rings back, and now he can unlock magic and the magic, space technology of the rings. So the mixture, it's kind of magic and technology.
Right.
So they come from space, so essentially it's the Marvel cosmic stuff.
And Dragon, I just thought, just kind of the nostalgia. Let's go back to that. The nostalgia of being fresh into the MCU and having all these wild theories of which characters would show up. Yeah. Infamously, Dragon, you remember one of the ones I go back to is Incredible Hulk, the Mr. Blue being Captain America.
That's still the dumbest theory you've ever had. Mr. Blue.
Oh God. Yeah, what can I say? I was excited. Captain America was definitely the phase 1 movie I was most excited about. I'll say that much.
So yeah, now the heat's on. No pun intended with the Cole threat at the moment. But yeah, it's again Tony's sticking up to Tony, the big kind of golden goose in this scene. Like, they don't want to shoot him, but he's going to put him in a position where they're all arming their guns on him for Tony. Sticking up for Yinsen here, and again, I love that. I love Tiki. They have so much great kind of side stuff going on here, where Tony's just he's on the sidelines of this, where Rasa knows that okay, something's going on here, where he's talking to Yinsen. And Yinsen's like, he's staying strong in this moment. He's trying to protect Tony. He's trying to protect the future, essentially. Where he's he's willing to get burned for Tony Stark to kind of learn to do the right thing, essentially. Yeah, it's really strong stuff. And again, the fact that Rasa and Yinsen, they have an understanding even more so in Tony Stark. And again, Yinsen knows that he's a goner. And he knows that Rasa is probably going to be responsible for it. Okay, now here's the big image. Here's the here's the big image that going into this movie, I really only had one image from the movie, and it was this one, him like classically one of the big symbols of Iron Man, him in the cave, pounding out the armor and basically kind of pounding. Creating the iron from a forge of some kind.
Right.
Again, that was really my first inkling of who the heck Tony Stark was, really, aside from just like cursory knowledge from like, okay, he's the guy in the suit, but seeing him make the suit, the big kind of prolific. He's like one of those magazine images, like the Wikipedia image of Iron Man when you're looking like who's in this movie. I had no idea. Tony Stark. I mean, I thought it was Iron Man. That whole thing.
So, Dragon, help me out here. I know that the Mark 1 armor is based on the original design for Iron Man, but was that just the armor that he uses to escape the cave in the origin, or does that design go on for the early installments of Iron Man? Like, does he keep that same kind of like knight in shining armor style design?
Well, I mean, like for the first issue, I mean, he changes the armor really fast. I don't know how long he kept. It
Okay.
wasn't long when he kept the armor, but they've always used like the silver, cave made armor to escape. And again, the faceplate looks very identical to like kind of that, the built-in kind of iron frown into the thing.
Hmm.
So I mean, it is very faithful. It's a more practical version where you see more rivets and like kind of the piece together nature. I love you see like the Stark weapons piece together. Like he's wearing the symbol of. I mean, it's even more poetic here, where he's wearing the symbol of what kind of put him in this situation in the first place. He's wearing the weapons that fell into the wrong hands, and he's taking them back.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's a good image. Oh, by the way, in this moment here, where he's suiting up for the first time, this is really beautiful. I had no idea about this, and I love that. I found out that Sean Toomey said to him in this moment, said to Robert Downey Jr. Is one of those 10-year things right here, where he said to Robert Downey Jr. "Says you're Iron Man. You're Iron Man for the rest of your life. No one can ever take that away from you."
Aw.
Again, that's so sweet, and he was so right that again we're in a place where no, they can never recast Downey Jr. as Iron Man because again he's.
Oh, little did they know how right he was.
But I'm saying again, like Sean Toomey had again him mirroring his character too, and kind of the realization of where Robert Downey Jr. would go in his career.
Hmm.
Yeah, nice. I love the urgency and the precision in the escape. I love how they're repeating back to each other, like this many steps and that many steps. Well, because again, they know the arc reactor is going to power the suit, but still, there's in figuring out how to shoot this too. By the way, there's only like a limited mobility of that suit, so you got to know where you're going to make your move, so you don't get like so you have like a straight shot out of the cave, like a walk out of the cave, and then they know the flight capabilities. It's a long shot and it's going to be temporary, so he has to blast his way out of there. So again, it's like step this many times so you can basically get like the minute you're out of that cave and you're in like again you're away from the mountain, blast off. Essentially, again, I love that they have like such a well worked out game plan in that regard. And again, this is tragic here, the death of Yinsen.
But it's so heroic. It's so noble.
It is, and again, I love I absolutely love every single thing. I love Yinsen and Tony Stark. I just love to have that. More on that in the big scene when it comes, but
No, but you're right. It's so well constructed. It's so like every bit puts together. Where he runs into the room filled with the armed guards, and then the power suit, charges up, and we get the start of the action scene. It's a very cathartic end to the first act. It's just like, all right, we've been waiting. Let's see this thing in
So
action.
we have the big Iron Man build up here, and again, they really took their time and like make sure it's all in shadow, and they see the armor. They don't know that anyone's in it. It's like it's all really cool. And Favreau does this basically when Iron Man does like this punch when he like punches a guy and he goes downward. That's Jon Favreau in the motion capture suit.
Nice, nice.
So again, like a lot of it's practical, and again, as we see even today, and now it's even more digital than it's ever been before. But I mean, they have like this plastic, not plastic, but like kind of a foam core. Like there, sometimes it's metal armor, like pieces of metal armor. Sometimes it's pieces
Well, I
of the
mean,
kind of
we've got to the point where it's like bleeding edge armor. You know what I mean? It's like, so I feel like it's meant to look a little more artificial because the armor itself is a little more artificial.
I was saying, even looking at the first one here, it had like the most practical armor out of everything. Where again, pieces like the legs usually be exposed so the actor can walk around, but I mean, for the most part, especially with the Mark One here, it's practical. I mean, it's
Mhm.
you see that the little bit they have like little digital enhancements on the back, especially. But I mean, it's again you have a stunt guy in there. Downey Jr. wanted to do as much as he could, especially in the first one. Now it's changed a great deal. Now we're just kind of phone it in if he wanted. I'm not saying he phones it. I'm just saying he could if he
Well,
wanted.
now I literally have a theory. Again, folks, none of us have read Forbes or anything, but I have a theory, Dragon, that they're going to kill Tony Stark, but they're going to make him an AI so we can still have an Iron Man.
You know what's funny? Ever since you told me that idea, I gotta tell you, I've become a little more won over. I love the sweetness of he's become Jarvis. That's kind of a sweet idea. I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, Downey Jr. He foolishly he tried doing he put on the suit. You gotta remember this suit's like 90 to 100. If this and some of the other Iron Man suits, you're putting on 90 to 100 pounds if you're wearing the full suit. And when you do that, and here's the thing, if the initial one that Dan Jr. put on wasn't like 90 pounds, then he ran around in it on the first day, which means he was beat
Oh
ridiculously
God.
beat the next day. So he's like, okay, I can't. We gotta bring him to okay, like I'll do as much as I can. I'm just saying, guys, like I foolishly. This is something I call in the rewatch, man. I loved even more so in the remembrance of this. I love that Yinsen, in his last moments, he warned Tony to avoid that rocket blast by Rasa, and I thought that was really sweet. He warned him like, like look out, and again he's kind of saved Tony in one of his last moments there as well. The thematic save that he's pulling out, and again, this is probably my favorite scene from Iron Man, the first Iron Man, probably.
I have seen Saving Private Ryan, Tony, and I'm going to replicate that for you, just so you know what an important character arc you're about to embark on.
But on a serious note, this is a sad and powerful moment to Yinsen's death.
I
And
don't
again,
mean to
it's
joke around, but it's literally an earn it moment.
yeah, and I love that. Again, I love that. Tony Stark unknowingly. The powerful thing is that in this moment, Tony Stark he's kind of realizing, unknowingly, he kind of endangered Yinsen's village and killed Yinsen's family with the Stark weaponry that the terrorists had been armed with. So again, it's kind of in his final moment, he's kind of giving Tony that redemptive task, saying, don't waste your life. And basically, he saved the man who kind of is responsible for his family and his village's death, and he's kind of redeeming that man. That's a power. You respect the heck out of Yinsen for doing that. And again, like thank you, Tony. Thanks him for saving his life, and just that echoing word of like again, both Yinsen and Dr. Erskine, they both kind of have those moments to both Cap and Iron Man where it's
They're
like,
very, very similar characters, honestly.
but I mean, they are, but again, in a way that ties Tony and Cap to in a way even further, where it's like, hey, don't waste your life. Again, different messages, but still really powerful messages. Don't waste your life.
You know
Be
what, Dragon?
proactive.
I just realized that would be a great way to work Uncle Ben into a conversation is to compare Uncle Ben to one of those two guys.
Mm.
I don't know. What do you think?
Um,
Because I always kind of joke around about the idea that every Marvel movie has a proverbial Uncle Ben. But, what if we actually addressed it?
well, I mean, again, it depends on how we go with Infinity War. But it'd be nice if Tony had a scene talking about Uncle Ben in comparison to Yinsen. Like I had someone like that. I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, yeah. I don't know. It doesn't have to be Infinity War, but
Well, I'm just saying, like, I don't know for again, depending if Tony dies or not, we'll probably get that scene.
well,
It's
that's
just like,
true. That's
that's what I'm
true.
saying. You never know if like who.
I mean, if my AI theory comes true, then we can still get that.
Exactly. So you never know, folks. We don't know. Oh, so by the way, that was one of the stunt guys, as I mentioned. The stunt guy, he actually accidentally lit himself on fire during that flamethrower scene. His legs. I mean, he's fine. He was fine. He's just like he was like quick, like he kind of stepped into the gas line. By the way, I want to say this because this really, I love this catch that the Mark One armor, as you see in the back, it's less armored in the back, and that's a foreshadow for when Obadiah Stane has the Ironmonger armor later on. The weak spot of the Ironmonger armor is the back, much like the Mark One. So they kind of, I love you can kind of track some of those little touches there.
Right.
I'm just saying, like, it has like the same weakness, and Tony kind of knows the weaknesses of the armor based on the original.
So, Dragon, help me out here on this one. Was the military just flying around for 2 months or however long it was, just looking for Tony in the
Well, here's the
general
thing.
area?
There was a deleted scene, and it was nice, but I still, they don't need it because they kind of serve the same point here. Where basically, Rhodey has been looking for him nonstop, and like his commander says, "Are you sure you risk your military career saving?" That the officer respected him for going for his friend like this. So he's been like Tony Stark's been missing for
I
3.
can respect that. I just wish there was a little bit more of an explanation. I know it's a nitpick, but
Again, it was a good scene. It's just again, like they don't. At the end of the day, I don't think they need because again, you get it here where Rhodey's reunited with his buddy, and I love the fact that again, as Rhodey calls him on it here, like Tony was just saying, "Hey, I don't want to be in the humdrum V with you, so I'm going to be with these guys." Of course, that's like next time you ride with me. Yeah, that's nice. And again, much like the original Iron Man origin, Rhodey was there, and the only difference is he helped that Iron Man, not Tony Stark, and that's kind of why they were kind of mano a mano because they. Rhodey was like there when he was like kind of in this position where he's just kind of walking off after the initial escape. Nice homage. So again, to speak, just to briefly go back here again, the dynamic between Pepper and Tony, it's 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 great, and it has like an old kind of. I do agree with it. It feels very kind of 40s ish almost. It feels like kind of Maltese Falcon, the detective and
Oh yeah.
and the secretary, very much so. It feels old school, and I really like that quality about it. They talk over each other in a good way, not like in a forced way in the next one. And again, it's like they bring about a humanity in each other there. Like there's an unspoken thing between basically the unspoken thing that we have talked about, and like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is very much what they have.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, like she manages the carefree the carefree brilliant billionaire, right, who kind of drives her nuts, but she likes the guy, and she's stuck around through thick and thin because she likes the guy. So again, this is a nice reunion. After 3 months, he's been held in captivity. What does he want? He wants an American cheeseburger.
Do we get a branding on what cheeseburger he
Yes,
gets?
we do, and it's again. Here's the thing: I'm not really bothered by it's Burger King. I'm not bothered by product placement if it's not in your face because it's there. And again, you kind of forget about it. It's like okay, so it's easy. I don't mind giving it like an actual
My
brand.
issue with that is like if he wants a cheeseburger, like, I guess fast food's a way to go, but like you're in Malibu, dude. Go to In-N-Out. Go to In-N-Out. Why wouldn't you go to In-N-Out?
Well, again, that's when it comes into the whole like I've heard product placement horror stories from Back to the Future, Tiki. You don't want to know, but I mean, it's I guess that's a Burger King basically kind of forcing him on that one. I guess they could they probably they
Okay,
Burger King can
hold on.
recognize.
We're talking over Colson. He's much more important than Burger King.
All right. Yeah, so the great Clark Gregg as Coulson here, and again, he's just I always love these little ancillary characters, and like that he came back, and let alone we went farther with him than I ever thought we would.
How would you ever predict that that guy would get his own TV show?
Tiki in a million years, I never would have predicted it. But again, I love that we. I'll say this: I love Coulson just being used sparingly in here. And again, I love how we circle back and we see exactly what he was doing. Kind of what Age of the Shield, we get a sense of like what kind of his job was, and I can feel like with the tie-in comics exactly what he was doing in the movie behind the scenes. But the one caveat with Coulson is though he's stuck with like a really retcon gag. He's stuck with the whole Shield gag. That's unfortunate. Like one of the only gripes, like I have like very minimal gripes against this movie. One gripe when we go into Tony's workshop earlier in the earlier scene, I hate the rock music that I was listening to, which is the guy talking with music behind him. I've
God.
always hated that in the theater. That is still my
I
biggest
mean, that's an
nitpick.
oddly specific nitpick, but yeah, I won't argue. That is
I'm
not
just
the
saying
type
that
of
was like when
music
I
I
first
listen
saw
to.
the movie. That was like the one thing I really I couldn't stand. Like this isn't this isn't even music. The guy's not even what. Anyway, so there's that. The shield gag doesn't hold up, and again, the third act, I can live with the third act, but again, primarily those two nitpicks are the ones that are just sticking my craw.
Mhm.
And okay, so by the way, just the Downey Jr. doing like the whole sitting down with the burger and kind of asking everybody to sit down. That was him improvising.
Oh, nice, nice.
I was saying the whole sit-in thing. That was Downey Jr.'s idea, like in the moment.
Mhm.
So again, I love that he's being very proactive with the press conference here. He's saying, "Okay, I'm
His
not selling
journey
weapons
kind of
anymore."
starts and ends with a press conference once we establish the origin. I think the
Absolutely,
bookend quality of that.
sure, sure. And again, I don't want to overemphasize, Christiane Everett, because again, this movie she's important, and the other one she's a callback, and so the only time she really kind of matters. Um, I do like that he's basically doing what she asked him to, basically, where he gave her the line about doing other things aside from weapons, like I'll be making bricks and baby formula
Uh-huh.
if we end in peace times, and essentially that's kind of what he's doing here. He's shutting down, he's living up to the line that he gave her earlier in the movie. So this is great. I like this scene. I like this set piece in front of
This set
the
piece looks
giant.
so much like a freaking theme park queue. It's not even funny.
Cool. And again, from what we understand, they essentially they actually did build this into a theme park with the Iron Man
Yeah,
experience in Hong
yeah,
Kong.
it's
So I'm
there.
pretty sure
It's there.
it's definitely based on it's the same design of Iron Man one. So it's definitely very. I don't know if they rebuilt this or not. Yes, I think I can't remember if they rebuilt the arc reactor for that ride.
No, I'm pretty sure the arc reactor's there as you. I'm pretty sure it's there as you walk in.
Again, the idea is, I'd like that we establish like the big arc reactor, and we kind of look into the origin of it in the second movie, where even the idea is in the '60s, Tony's father Howard and Anton Vanko developed the arc reactor, which of course
The great thing
saved.
about that is it's such a Walt Disney thing to do.
Yeah, and again, as Obadiah Stane says, it was to shut the hippies up in the '60s. So it's kind of it's kind of fun that this again like reflect that magazine, the Rolling Stone thing from earlier on, like a kind of a PR thing, kind of a false a false kind of press image, like kind of a stunt, a publicity stunt, is what saved Tony Stark's life. Again, his own false image kind of saved him in that regard. It's kind of funny.
Right.
So, by the way, I completely missed this, but as when Obadiah Stane arrived, he was riding a Segway, and Jeff Bridges was very
Yes.
proud about riding
Yes.
a Segway. He had never done it before, and it was like one of his stunts in the
Oh
movie, riding a
man.
Segway. And by the way, I just want to show you this is Jeff Bridges is a cool guy. And that again, early Jeff Bridges. Nowadays, Jeff Bridges kind of locked on that one cowboy character. But I mean, Jeff Bridges back in the day, he shaved his head.
He's almost unrecognizable in this movie, honestly.
The cool thing is, like, he didn't have to shave his head for the character, but he did because Obadiah Stane is bald in the comics. And again, they told him like, hey, look, we're doing kind of a different Obadiah Stane here. You don't have to. And it's cool, but he went for the character in that regard.
So I got to admit, this Mad Money Perry sketch kind of dates the movie a little bit.
Again, we have a few dated gags. We have Mad Money. We
The
have
MySpace thing.
Yeah, MySpace.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. We have a few, but again, I kind of adds like kind of a charm to it all. Like, yeah, I remember that adds you the resonance of like, look how far we've gone.
Right, right.
So I want to mention this. So again, Tony's, the set for Tony's workshop and the set for, a lot of the sets in the movie, primarily all the Tony Stark Mansion stuff. That's they shot that at Playa Vista. Now, Playa Vista is a studio where that was refurbished from Howard Hughes's hangar for the Spruce Goose, which is kind of trippy and awesome. They took Howard Hughes's.
That is like life imitating art right there.
That's where they built their sets because Playa Vista was basically where Marvel Studios was kind of housed and what they had access to in the early phases back in 2008. Well, early 2006, I guess. Anyway. Okay, now this is funny. This scene always like I learned how they shot this, but I saw it for the first time. I was like tripping. I was tripping out like, oh my god, how the heck did they shoot this?
Right.
So here's how they do it, folks. I guess in retrospect, it's quite simple, but I still think it's an impressive effect. The idea is it's a fake chest, and he's like sitting on like a little stool behind the chair here. And Downey Jr. like he's sticking up. Again, basically they blended the makeup, so like he has the fake chest, and he's actually sitting upwards right now.
Wow.
And that's why she can reach into it. It's clever, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a cool practical effect. Where now we might do it digitally. Put him give him like a green shirt, but it's see John. They still probably could have
so much on green screen nowadays, Dragon.
Yes, but what's funny though? They still could have done that, but this speaks to Jon Favreau. One of his mantras on this movie was he likes to do things as practical as possible. I mean, he's not afraid of using digital effects, but the thing is, this is his first kind of big effects movie that he's done because he's had like digital like touches here and there. And Zathura was probably the most that he had done digitally. And now this, and of course, this is going to put him in the new territory. But he's still looking for the practicality and the effect, which is impressive. And again, this is all gross, but again, I do love the pseudoscience of it all, where the electromagnet that Yinsen put in there, like there were two electromagnets in Tony's body. You had, if not two, then he took the original electromagnet and he put it in there while he put the new arc reactor in. So again, you still need an electromagnet to get the shrapnel held in place, and the arc reactor powers that said electromagnet. Now what he's done is he's streamlined the process, so you just need to plug in the arc reactor. And again, as the years go on, you see the arc reactor, especially when we get to Iron Man 2, the arc reactor doesn't have a wire or anything you have to worry about. Again, I love that he learned from this experience that he didn't want to risk like Pepper or himself doing the operation gag where it's going to like shock the crap out of him in the sides and send him in the cardiac arrest. Right. So it has like a little, that's why in Iron Man 2, it's like a little plug-in effect where, like you eject the arc reactor, you plug in the palladium core and you back in there.
And that's one of the things I love about Iron Man through the MCU. He's, of course, some can say he's been a little bit oversaturated in the franchise, but every step he takes, every installment he's in, he's always improving his technology.
Yeah, I love it. I tell you, I mean, again, there's stuff I could speculate on with Infinity War. I don't want to bog it down too much with Infinity War spec, but I mean, I'll say this much. I mean, I love that we handled Extremis far better than because I always hated Extremis in the comics, and I told you this. Extremis for Iron Man in the comics was he injected himself, and basically the armor formed around him into the infamous gold condom costume. And or basically it's like the liquid gold suit, and he snaps on the red armor. But again, Iron
Oh
Man 3,
God.
we do it much better. Where he injects himself like a magnet control thing, and basically he can call the armor to himself, which is far superior to that. And let's just say, Infinity War, if they play it right, they might be. I'm not saying inject it into him, because that's still stupid. But they might be able to do something after. Let's just say after Black Panther, we might be able to do something, kind of cool, even cooler than that.
Well, yeah, like I said, kind of the bleeding edge technology.
Exactly. That's what. Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Oh, and these are real Air Force guys. I don't know if all the I know they're shooting on Edwards Air Force Base right now, and we come back to this location in Iron Man 2. But all these guys are real Air Force guys. I don't know if in the earlier scene they were, but all these guys are real Air Force guys.
Nice.
Rhodey and Tony are having a little scene in front of them. These are real planes, by the way. These aren't props. These are real actual. Yeah. Oh, by the way, I just wanted to mention that with in the previous scene, because it's kind of a big thematic thing, the whole the proof that Tony Stark has a heart thing. When Pepper got the arc reactor, I love that Tony he claims that he's not nostalgic yet. And again, you can see it in the opening in that opening kind of exposition reel that Tony is somewhat nostalgic because he kept the two robots that he made. He kept Dummy and You. That's what their names are, Dummy and You. And he kept them around, and he built them when he was in MIT. When he was 17, he built those dummies, and he's kept them around because he likes them. And Jarvis, again, Jarvis is the predominant symbol of again. Jarvis, as we learned in Agent Carter, he was a physical butler who, again, Tony had a fondness for him. So when he died, he put him into an AI. And of course, years later, Vision.
Now, do we know if Jarvis is supposed to be like the actual, the actual person, or is he just based on the
Well, it's
person?
based on Jarvis. It's not the actual. I
Okay,
mean,
okay.
if your theory comes to pass, who knows? But I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's an approximation of what Jarvis. It sounds like Jarvis, and it sounds like Jarvis, and it's modified to think like Jarvis. It's not actually Jarvis. And they say
Gotcha.
artificial intelligence, so I presume that means like, it's not the real guy.
Right, right.
And this, by the way, this is a fun thing where they were shooting this. Not fun for them when they were shooting this. Uh, they were shooting the same desert that Downey Jr. landed in earlier on, and they all had to wear these masks and these cool looking goggles because that's what you have to do when the sandstorms happen. Because when they shot this, you had sandstorms like crazy, so they had to roll with it. Kind of turned kind of a lemon into lemonade on that. We're okay, makes them look cooler. Just give them the goggles and everything. Let's just shoot this as is while the sandstorms going
Uh,
on.
nice,
And
nice.
now that we're kind of in the Act 2, and I meant to say this by the end of Act 1, but again, I mentioned earlier, I love how each armor is kind of a reflection of the act. Literally, when an armor
No, you
begins and
said that.
ends.
You mentioned that.
Well, yeah, while that happens, I also love that you can also track it by every act is about 40 minutes. I think that's great plotting. I mean, you can nail it down like 40 minutes in an Iron Man suit. I mean, I love that you can have like good kind of a twofold kind of tracking like that for your
And
arcs.
also, every act, importantly, is about like kind of tinkering and building the Iron Man suits. Like that's what really sets this movie apart. As I said, it's a much more deliberately paced movie than something like Avengers: Age of Ultron, for example, which, like right from the very get go, it's like, hey, here's all these heroes in a really big action set piece, boom, right off the bat.
Like, look, I'll defend Age of Ultron, but you're right that it doesn't have like the seamless kind of Act One, Act Two, Act Three. Again, Tegan and I, we are big advocates of the 3 act breakdown. So,
Mhm. Oh yeah, oh yeah.
and yeah, looking at that too, Tegan. I mean, if you look at the development of the armor, Act One is the creation of the armor. Act Two is the improvement slash upgrading, tinkering of the armor, and Act Three is the implication of said updates, and basically the implication of living in a world with this technology.
Yeah,
And again,
which is fascinating because it's like it really is kind of like all the phases of the development of new technology put into the form of a 3 act structure of a movie. That's cool.
absolutely. This is all cool, and again, we see how far he's come along with the holographic stuff and all the holograms and like kind of the interfaces and developing the technology. And I still love. Again, I really even after all the improvements we've gotten, and I do love the upgrades. You know me, I'm at the kind of a tech guy, I'm a gadget head, and despite all of that, I still love the old practicality of seeing it this early on. Still, I could still, even if they just did this for all the movies, I think I'd still be happy. But I mean, seeing him upgrade even more so, just keeps getting, it's like the gift that keeps on giving.
Uh-huh.
Pepper originally had a line here where she said, after he blasted across here, she said, "Just don't point your flight stabilizer at me." Kind of funny. Now, actually, with the repulsors, this is important. So repulsors are actually shorthand for is RT, which is repulsor technology, which again is something that was experimented on in well, it's something that is it's always like in development, like the flying car. You know, something that's always in development and kind of it is an existing thing, but definitely Iron Man, even again, dating back to the '60s, again was always really kind of ahead of its time on with with how you could use the repulsor technology like to levitate yourself and to kind of do the hover conversion, but for a character.
So, Dragon, we could talk blue in the face about how fun this pizza gag is with Stain. I
And I
would say
love
this is arguably Stain's finest moment.
this is kind of a twofer here. So John Favreau is from he's a New Yorker, he's from Queens, and he's from Flushing, Queens specifically. And it's original Ray's pizza, and in Elf there's an original Ray's joke in that. So again, you speak to the New Yorker and John Favreau with these pizza gags.
Uh-huh.
Ed Asner in Elf, he's saying, now, buddy, there so many. There are a lot of pizza places that claim to be a lot of Ray's pizzas, and they all claim to be the original. But the real original, I want to say, it's like whatever one's in proximity to the Queens. It's fun. And again, we are kind of hinting at New York, which again later on we're gonna see that the end Stark really kind of Stark Industries really remains in New York, hence the trip there. And this is fine. This is kind of weird inconsistency. You'll notice. I mean, it's not a problem. It's just something to notice. Tony, he cut a hole into the shirt for the arc reactor. So presumably, when he's working on the arc reactor, so he can power things and everything, he cuts a hole into his shirt so he can just have a direct interface. So he doesn't worry about like connecting wires and stuff underneath
like
his
somewhere
shirt.
in Stark Mansion, there's just like a huge closet filled with shirts with holes in them.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. This is cool. And this is the stuff I remember Nickelodeon at the time. They loved like showing this scene, like showing the development footage, like him like slamming into the wall earlier, and like kind of the like
Mm-hmm. Like,
big
nope,
scene.
this is not where I would. This is not where I want to be right now.
Oh god, I love Dummy here. Dummy's just again these two robots are brilliant. Again, the payoff with them is fantastic. I mean, you can't say enough nice things about the sweet payoff between these.
I mean, the fact that they're still in the MCU as of Homecoming is kind of amazing.
It is. It's so sweet. And again, we are seeing again tracking Tony's arc here. Again, kind of the fun thing here. Again, we're doing kind of a again, this is still kind of reminiscent of the Spider-Man, the Raimi Spider-Man, kind of developing your powers, learning your powers, that sort of thing. And while it is that, I do love that this plays into Tony's character of one, these inventors going to work at things, but he is impulsive. Again, we still have that carefree billionaire attitude applied to the now socially conscious inventor. We're like, hey, I want to take a proactive role in my company, setting my company straight. And in doing so, I mean, I don't have time to kind of like, I'm going to jump right into with these dangerous, ill thought out test experiments here. I'm going to experiment right next to the expensive cars, my nice expensive cars. And again, we see that he doesn't view himself as nostalgic because he's going to smash the crap out of these cars. Just buy another one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now here we go. Here's the heads-up display, otherwise known as the HUD. So again, famously the kind of the in the bowl shots, if you will, for Iron Man.
Man, well, I mean, where would the MCU be without this this visual device? I mean, it was such an inspired choice.
It's so funny because Jon Favreau, he worked on Batman Forever, and we have that bit in Batman Forever where Batman's going down the tube and Alfred, very much like Jarvis for a moment. We do know there's an Alfred computer system in the Batcave in the Schumacher films. They have two ideas that, again, were kind of from the Schumacher films that Favreau did work on that kind of ended up in Iron Man. It's kind of funny.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now this is cool. They actually built they seamlessly. There's a practical suit that does look this good. Everyone in the production loved the Mark II the most because they love the brush metal look, the rivets. I mean, it does look really cool. It's a great work in progress armor, and in doing so, they had a practical suit that looks fantastic. But they have the bells and whistles put on it, and they you had it like a side by side comparison. It looks seamless. What they had going on there, like the practical suit and the suit that can move a little bit with like that turnaround shot to kind of energize the frame. And doing that, it's so again so ILM does the majority of the suit effects. All your main suit effects, that's ILM. The let's see, I'm trying to make sure I get it right here. I believe the orphanage. So you have the orphanage, and you have you have, you have the orphanage, you have the embassy, and you have ILM. ILM does the suit. The orphanage, they do the HUD, all the HUD and all the holograms. That's all them. The
Uh,
embassy does like the little touches, like all the flaps of the armor moving and like stuff like that, like all the little touches. That's them. They're
so
kind
I
of
love how pacing wise, it's almost a perfectly paced movie because at almost exactly the halfway point is when we get Iron Man flying for the first time.
yeah,
Like, tell me that's not economic storytelling right there.
it is. And again, this feeds into kind of that Fantastic Four kind of Spider-Man era of again he's pushing himself, and the kind of that you're in midair. Ah,
You can
like
almost get to space, Tony. The whole Marvel cosmic universe is out there. Do it. Reach
And I
for the
love that.
stars.
Knowing what little you know that Iron Man at the time, you know, like okay, he's going to end up having a space armor, and you like even at this early in the MCU, you know that's it's on the horizon. And this is a cool foreshadow years later. Now you realize that. Oh my God, we're foreshadowing Rhodey's fall.
Sure,
Now
sure.
again, bear in mind, I want to be clear because it sounds like we're doing this. I want to clarify again. We know that while they're making this, they're not thinking all the way into the all these various phases. All right, they're not thinking all the various phases and like foreshadowing like Rhodey's fall. But I love that them looking
Dragon, they
back.
have every little possible thing mapped out. They have just a huge, giant flow chart.
I mean, I love that they're
It's like Ben
looking.
Affleck in The Accountant, when that scene where he has like the whole
Yeah,
room filled with whiteboards. It's
yeah,
like,
all the markers. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
But again, I love that they're thinking. Love they're thinking it through. And this, I still kind of don't get. But I mean, I guess the armor's heavy, and there's a chance the repulsors work backwards from. I don't know how he goes through two floors all the way to the car. I still don't get that, but I'm going to give it a pass. It's like, okay, I guess it makes sense. And again, I love, of course, the dummy gets him with the extinguisher. And that, by the way, that's a $50,000 replica car. It's not the actual car. It's $50,000 car, though.
So that's kind of this movie's equivalent of Tommy Wiseau throwing the TV out the window in the room.
Essentially.
Like, all right, here's a really expensive prop we're just going to destroy. Ah!
So again, here's one of the most brilliant concepts in the movie that again puts the whole arc reactor heart message into perspective. There, it's great. Proof that Tony Stark has a heart. It's a reminder of Pepper Potts. It's a reminder of his connections, and it's a reminder that he's developing a nostalgic side. He's developing kind of a care for things now going forward more. Again, he's evolving from the kind of the self-absorbed kind of kind of carefree billionaire. If I break something, I can buy another one mentality. Like I care about these things. I care about the life I want to lead. I want to be a better person. That sort of thing. So that's what that wonderful little gift symbolizes.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's very appropriate that Tony develop a nostalgic side because, again, maybe not. I don't think anyone anticipated just how big the MCU was going to be, because at this point the MCU is just the pinnacle of blockbuster filmmaking as we know it. But
Again, the highest thing they expected was Avengers. Like, okay, we're going to have at least six guys and meet up. That's about it.
right. But what I'm saying is the MCU has established such a sense of history unto itself that even Tony's journey from 2008 to 2018 is, kind of filled with nostalgia. So it's interesting that we get that right off the bat with this movie. We established that, the admiration of his past.
Yeah. Also, I love this. Now, Tiki in the comics, the way it went was, he goes from the Mark One, the suit that he escaped the cave with, the silver suit. The iron suit he upgraded that to the gold suit. This gold suit was the second suit he wore, and that's the suit he wore in the comics when he formed the Avengers. He wore basically he spray painted. I don't know if he spray painted or he remade it like a different alloy, but he had a gold version of the cave armor. And essentially, what we do here, and this is quite clever, is that what we did is we homaged the gold armor, where he's saying a little ostentatious, don't you think? And the ideas and the pseudoscience of it all here is the gold parts of the Iron Man arm, which again originally was like it's the all gold suit that he's wearing as the Mark III, technically. The all gold suit is satellite equipment. That's all satellite material. That basically that solves the icing problem. The gold solves the icing problem. That allows you to go into space because you're coated in space prepared material.
Right.
And the red's just kind of the stylistic choice. And by the way, so the Iron Man, the final Iron Man armor, the kind of the Mark III and essentially the Mark II without the paint. That is inspired by at the time what the Warren Ellis Iron Man in the comics. It was basically the more militaristic Iron Man look was in the comics by Adi. Yeah, I'm trying to remember his. I'll think of it. But basically, they went to the Iron Man artist in the comics to develop the Iron Man armor for the movie, which is cool.
Stan Lee cameo.
Originally, that cameo had I really was. They shot the whole thing. I just wish they included in there where he bumps into Stan Lee, says, "Oh, hi, Hef," and he kind of stops for a moment. He turns around, and he says, "Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you." He says, "Sorry about that." And he says, "Don't worry. I get it all the time." I wish they kept that in there.
Yeah, because I never understood that until very recently when we did the top 10 Stan Lee cameos, and you explained it to me that it's not actually supposed to be Hugh Hefner.
I think it's Adi Grandolph. I believe that's the artist's name. Again, he's the one who developed kind of the Iron Man look. I think that's the name. Pretty sure. Also, of course,
I love how pleasant and professional Coulson is. He's just like, whenever you get the chance.
Exactly. And again, honestly, I kid you not, Tiki. Again, just kind of our love of pleasantries, I think, is the reason Coulson stuck in my mind. Not just based on I'm just saying our mutual love of pleasantries. His love that Coulson was kind of a non-combative government agent. It was like, oh, man, he seems kind of nice. And he has develops a nice rapport with Pepper Potts later on. There's a nice little touch there, kind of made Coulson stand out. And again, when we attach more importance to Coulson, it went a long way. By the way, Disney Concert Hall. So, hint of the future, maybe.
I've driven by that before.
So again, this is a sweet scene. This is one of the scenes where it all comes together for Tony and Pepper. This scene and probably the birthday scene from earlier on. Again, this is the payoff to that scene where we reveal what she got herself for her birthday from Tony Stark. The backless dress. She's living. Again, this is very much kind of that old school kind of 40s business dynamic they have with each other. Where again, it's really sweet. It's really beautiful. It's showing that Tony he's a little more aware of this and he's respecting Pepper's feelings a little bit more. So, by the way, with the Coulson stuff, the tie-in, there's a tie-in story for what Coulson and Fury are doing in the background here. It's very simple. It's just
hit me.
Coulson and Fury, they're investigating Tony Stark's escape because they think that they think he's directly dealing with the terrorists. Like he sold his weapons to the terrorist. So that's why in this scene, Coulson is still under the impression, okay, we're investigating Stark, and he's playing the nice guy here, but he's going to lure Tony to kind of grill him over the weapons. That's why he wants to have the debriefing so they can gauge where he's at on that. Ultimately, they realize, again, thanks to Pepper Potts, they realize that, okay, Tony's the good guy, and then they're on his side, and that's why that's the Shield of all. It's their kind of arc of realizing, oh, Tony's the good guy after all. I'm not saying this was in the movie. I'm just saying that this was in the
comic. They're not like scouting Tony out for the Avengers initially, is what you're saying?
Not initially, because again, this is the origin of Iron Man. They weren't like if anything, in the original comics, like Tony Stark before Iron Man was a member of Shield, so he was developing weapons for Shield in the comics back in the day. At least that's the story they kind of established, that you'd see Tony Stark, if not Iron Man, as a part of S.H.I.E.L.D. So if anything, I would imagine, I'm filling my own headcanon here, I would imagine that they were looking at Tony Stark too. Tony Stark did build weapons that S.H.I.E.L.D. used, and I guess they were looking in the Stark, seeing if the guy that he had previous dealings with, because the Incredible Hulk, he had built weapons for them. As we saw, he built the sonic cannon they used against the Hulk and Incredible Hulk.
Right.
So they bought weapons from Tony. It's a question of how involved they were in that process, but regardless, they're checking out their investment in Tony Stark. That's why they're looking into the guy. Like, hey, a guy we've dealt with is now possibly involved in some shady stuff, funding the terrorists. We got to put a stop to this. Of course, they learn, it's Obadiah Stane and the whole, they get on the right path.
Gotcha.
A little fun fact. And again, this is Again, that's what I'm talking about with Everhart here. Again, Everhart is kind of she's the reminder of like the reality. It's like she's putting his arc into perspective as well here, not to the effect of Yinsen by any stretch, but I'm saying she's a reminder of the realities in the world. She's kind of mis-exposition here, but again, a mis-exposition
Yeah,
that does.
like that's kind of like I'm not a huge fan of her character just because she does kind of just exist to be like, hey, Tony, you should be more like this. Eh? I don't know. I'm not a big. I'm not big on it.
Well,
I mean,
neither was
no
I, but
disrespect to the actress or anything, but it's not the flashiest part.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying rewatching the movie, really kind of paying attention, really kind of analyzing it here. I just kind of saw she has some resonance, a little bit
Oh,
more resonance than I gave her credit for back in the day.
sure, sure.
So again, I mean, it's a great.
I think to me, the big thing she represents is kind of the difference between Tony's lifestyle before and after the cave.
I mean, but then the cool, like, last thing I'll really say about Everhard, I guess, is that Everhard, I love that she was a symbol. I mean, she's kind of a walking symbol of who Tony used to be, because again, they
Yeah,
slept
that's
together
what
at the
I'm
beginning of
saying.
the
Yeah.
movie. Yeah, exactly. And compared to where he's going with Pepper, and she's a symbol of what he used to be compared to where he could be with Pepper, the Tony that could be.
Right.
And again, I love that the reminder of his past and his faults is confronting him with like what's really going on. And I love the eyes in that scene where she's shown in the pictures. And like the minute he sees uh, Gomira, the town where Yunsen's from, like his eyes kind of light up. But again, Downey does a lot with his eyes in this scene, the previous scene, right here after Obadiah is kind of like said, I filed an injunction against you, right here. This scene, I mean, this is such a fantastic end to Act Two. I love this. This is the end of Act Two when he launches when he flies away. That's the end of Act Two.
Mm-hmm.
Or again, if you want semantics, he's flying into Act Three. You know what I mean? Again, like he's being confronted. Like basically, this is Tony's moment of choice. Okay, now you have the tools. You developed it all. You're incensed by the village of where the man who saved your life is being threatened with your own weapons, with the Jericho. They got their hands on a Jericho, which, as we saw, is big business. Which means it kind of implies they either stole the Jericho that he sold to the military. It's like a Jericho that he developed, like one of the ones he had on the line, built and ready. Either Obadiah sold this to them, or they stole it from the military that he visited while he was over there. Which either way is horrifying. And now, now he's really ticked off, and he's kind of like, he can't stand look at his own reflection here of just like, look, you built these weapons, mad at you. Again, like Tony's being faced with a chance. They're going to be proactive. They're going to live up to what you've been trying to do here, and boy is he. And this is the only time you ever see in the MCU you ever see him in the undersuit, by the way. Because there are two ideas they had in this movie that it's in the games, but they kind of got rid of it. Where he wears the undersuit where he armors up, so you don't get your clothing caught in like the rivets or anything in the armor.
Uh-huh.
Again, they kind of abandoned the idea because it was simpler. That's fine. And it's also kind of funny in retrospect. You see this most clunky way. Again, I'm just saying clunky by today's standards because this was awesome when we saw it for the first time. But now
It's just like you could make such a parody out of it.
literally, we're at a point where now he can. I'm not going to speculate about Infinity War. But I'm saying we're at a point now where in Civil War he can push a button in a helicopter that will armor him up. He can push a button in a helicopter that will armor him up, or again he can call it to himself. And again, I love that
Humble beginnings, though. You know what I mean? We all got to start somewhere, and I think that's a really interesting thing about this movie is that this movie is both kind of like, man, how far have we come, and also how little has changed. It's a really interesting kind of melting pot of those two ideas.
Yeah, I'm sorry, just double checking my notes here. It's Ade Grandoff. Yeah, that's the Grandoff. That's the artist here. I'm saying now he's fully armored up in like the true red and gold suit. That's the look.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but yeah. It's again, I rewatching the movie. I was still blown away by how even better the 3-act breakdown was than I ever imagined it was. Again, with like kind of like the proactive call to arms at the end of Act Two that gets us in Act Three. How each armor not only defines the act, but more specifically, it has a build up. Each armor has a build up to. We're in darkness in the cave, and we reveal the armor. Once he's figured all the bugs, he armors up in the rudimentary armor, and now dramatically, getting ready to take care of business, he armors up at the end of Act Two, and like the most dramatic, like he just armored up like blink and you miss it with the silver armor. Now he's armored up in a dramatic fashion with all the bells and whistles and everything. He's fully
Right.
like our hero's ready for the third act. And again, they I don't think they knew quite where they were going because out of that Phase One plan, I doubt they had Iron Man 2 in mind. But in the planning stages, you got to imagine. I mean, in how things turned out, again, there's a father-son rescue in this, and of course, the whole Howard Stark, Tony Stark arc of Iron Man 2. You got to imagine it might be, in retrospect, hey, a little bit of seeds, a little bit of breadcrumbs, a little bit of thematic, saving going on there. You know what I mean? I love my heroes saving people, and this I gotta tell you, years later, this is still again nothing that turns off the movie because it's just Iron Man's a different character as we see, but Iron Man killing terrorists. It's getting into murky territory. So
Just
it was
straight up murdering a bunch of people, just mowing them down.
that's what I'm saying. I mean, again, it's more.
We could get into the Luke Cage argument of like, hey, some of those might have been like kids recruited off the street just looking to make a buck.
To be fair, we do see that all these in this sequence of all these. But you're right. It could always be there. Could always be a kid. And again, years later, I think it might you could see.
I
It as
like
an
how in
arc.
Black Panther we addressed that.
True. I do like that you do have the implication that again, Tony Stark he becomes more responsible as the movies go on. So now he's at a
Oh,
place where
sure.
he doesn't have to kill anyone anymore because the technology's advanced so far. And again, it's like in a war zone. This is first day on the job. Again, it's kind of in that murky territory where you can get away with this sort of stuff. Again, being the guy who sold weapons to the military, and these guys are truly bad guys who took his weapons.
Look out, Tony! It's the tank from Saving Private Ryan.
Tank missile. Jaws tank. Of course, I love the whole him basically giving Abu the terrorist bully from the earlier scene to the people like basically seeing him outnumbered strength in numbers against the terrorist bully, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Again, kind of it's fun to see the similarities and kind of the contrast between Iron Man and Cap, how they both reflect the military in different eras. Now, Iron Man this is essentially is Michael Bay done right what we do with Iron Man here. The military is shown a very nice in very nice respect, and they're complimenting our hero, and our hero is very pro-military. And again, in no way are we showing the military as the bad guy.
Oh, but
And
it's also a very realistic kind of like, holy crap, there's this like unidentified flying thing that just came in and mowed down a bunch of terrorists. Like we gotta, we gotta look into this thing, man. This is
again,
a
this is
big
like
deal.
again, like there's a smart amount of military love without it being ham-handed like what Michael Bay does a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
I love this, by the way. There's a little thing I caught in the rewatch here that I love that Rhodey. I love it. It makes so much sense of Rhodey woodwork in weapons development thanks to Tony. That's kind of how they meet each other on a regular basis because that's Rhodey's called in here because like we have an unidentified thing here. Is it a new weapon? Like what do you think? Because again, he works with kind of the guy who was kind of like in the know about the weapons. So he's kind of helped build up Rhodey's career to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
Not none of the in the field stuff, but I'm just saying kind of the expertise kind of behind the desk in later years, I suppose. Again, this is Tony isn't kind of a sticky wicket here. Of course, I do love for this. Again, I love that we have these great little foreshadows here for the third act, but I do like that. That's the thing I will start to slowly defend with the third act here is that I love that everything that is established earlier on does pay off in the third act, like the flares. Like we see the flares in action, we see the de-icing measure earlier in the sequence. We see again, Act One, we have the back is like the weak spot. So like, those are three big elements that do come into play. Yeah, in Act Three. Again, I'll admit the flares is kind of the least of those three, but I'm just saying, we're kind of taking cues from each of these encounters.
I mean, when it comes to the third act, I almost kind of feel like it's a Wonder Woman situation where it's not necessarily all of the third act. It's more so just the final showdown is a little bit weak because it's just like, it's Iron Man and he's fighting an evil Iron Man. And Dragon, I really don't think it's until Black Panther that we actually got that formula down, and it was used really, really well.
Yeah, and literally, basically wearing the identical suit. That's
what I'm saying. It's just kind of like, it's an underwhelming. I mean, I agree with you that the set piece is very cool, very theme parky, but the actual fight, it's just kind of like, all right, And also Obadiah Stane's turn, as we'll get into it. We'll get into
and
it.
again, there's that
build to it.
That would just happen. That ringtone I was talking about. Rhodey's ringtone is the Iron Man theme.
Right, right.
It sounds like a theme that sounds like his intro, like da, 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 da. Again, it sounds like, oh boys, it's like an In Trouble ringtone. And yeah, this is this is cool again, like kind of realizing there's an Iron Man in the field. And I love Terrence Howard's reaction to like, oh my god, my friend's in a suit and he's under a beam. Under an
F-22. Kind of like speaks to the humble beginnings of the MCU, where it's like, this is kind of like the mind-blowing thing of the movie right here. Whereas, now we're at a point where it's like we're gonna be seeing a movie where it's like, talking raccoons and trees and giant purple California raisins and God knows what else.
I think we're past the. Come on, man. It's Infinity War Eve. Let's get past the California raisin thing. Anyway, so yeah, I've always loved the F-22 save here, where he saves the pilot by kind of punching the parachute, so he saves his bacon there, which is nice. Again, it's Joe and Tony being accountable for like, you kind of got into this mess by, again, he acted impulsively, again, like the carefree billionaire. He's coming from a good place though. Coming from a good place of proactivity, but again, it shows you the realities, and that's one of the hallmarks of the Marvel Universe. It shows you the realities of doing your superheroics, especially by the time we get to something like Civil War, where you can't just do these things. You have to go through certain channels. And in doing so, he kind of landed himself in trouble here. He almost cost a life. Thankfully, he saved that life. So again, like Iron Man, he again in the beginnings here, he's kind of learning by the seat of his pants on a lot of this.
Mm-hmm. I feel like this is also kind of like, this scene could also be a foreshadow to the airplane scene in Iron Man 3 where he saves all those people.
Sure, yeah.
Like a little bit of a gradual build up to something like that.
Again, I love these little catches of like, you have something like that, and of course you have like when he's falling through the air with the icing problem, it's shot identically to when the suit goes dead, like with Rhodey in Civil War.
Uh-huh.
Of course, this is funny. This is like a cut like the earlier scene. Again, this is the thing that Howard really brought to frame. Like when they cut from, I was like, no, I'm not going to do that, Tony. It's not that simple. It was a training exercise.
Hey, is this the moment where we get the turn of Stain?
Yo, hold a second though. Okay, you're right. We have the turn, but here's an Easter egg right here. Oh, this one, like, we have Cap Shield in this next shot coming up.
I did notice that, yes.
And just for authenticity's sake here, this is the same exact shield that we do see in Iron Man 2. They called it back for this very reason, by the way, because everyone lost their minds at the shield. That's why they put it in Iron Man 2. And again, it's a question of how far they had certain things figured out in advance, because I think they knew that Howard Stark developed the shield. But you'll notice, and I'll lay this out here because it's Infinity War Eve. All right, I'm going to lay this out there. So you'll notice, of course, in First Avenger, Howard Stark has a purely vibranium-made shield, which means you cannot construct a shield like the one that we see half constructed that we're going to see in Iron Man 2. My theory is that my rationale for this, and again, they could just disregard, call it a retcon, but I would hope that they're doing this, is that Howard Stark tried to build another Cap shield, just kind of think about his old buddy in the shop there. And where's Howard Stark? He passed away before he could really do any headway, because again, they couldn't find any vibranium, because before Wakanda comes into the picture, that's Cap shield was all the vibranium they had on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And my hope is that in Spider-Man Homecoming, we referenced that Iron Man specifically, he was transporting Cap's new shield. He was transporting it. Now, I'm not saying that, again, we know Cap has from the trailers, we know Cap has a cool new shield of his own. But I'm thinking Tony Stark possibly as an apology or something. Whether it's going to be in Infinity War, the next movie, who knows? With all this like who's going to die business, you never
Of
know.
course.
I think Tony might try to mend bridges by building, thanks to being in Wakanda, he's going to have like a vibranium shield or like an energy shield, which is another cool thing that Cap does get at the comics sometimes, like an energy shield, or basically, I think Tony's going to make a new Iron Man shield for Cap.
Mm-hmm.
Using again like the thing his father half completed. I think that would be kind of nice. That'd be a good callback of like, hey, remember this? I fixed it. Look. Again, the visual symbolism here. This is cool. So, while the arc reactor is the heart of everything, and of course the Tony developing a conscience, a heart, all that stuff. I love that Obadiah Stane in this state, and especially later on with the Ironmonger armor. You'll notice what he's lacking in this scene is the heart. So again, we're seeing kind of a guy lacking a heart versus a guy who's developed a heart. And this is always I love this gadget right here. I love the temporary paralysis emitter.
I think it's funny that, like 10 years into the MCU, we have another really good villain with the word monger in his name.
Oh my God, you're right. Yes. Oh. God, I was
the first person who's pointed that out to you, Dragon.
Tiki, here's the thing. I think once I may have caught it, but here's the thing. I was so wrapped up. If I caught it for a moment, like in the announcement of who that character was, I was like, hey, Eric Killmonger. I looked into the guy. I was like, oh, okay, Eric Killmonger. I said, oh yeah, Monger, like Ironmonger. Then here's the thing. After seeing the movie, gets so wrapped up in the Michael B. Jordan of it all, like you're talking about the character, you kind of forget like the very very obvious, hey, another Monger. It did not dawn on me until because again, it's so wrapped up in the cleverness of that character. Anyway, let's see. So yeah, with Stane again, I love the villain reveal on Stane. Again, I like that. Again, he just seemed like a businessman who again made a call against Tony, but again, just seemed like he was going to be like a Justin Hammer, like a business rival, not like a big bad guy necessarily.
Yeah, that's honestly kind of the issue I have with him, is that he kind of, switches gears towards the end of the third act to be like, I'm gonna kill everyone, raw.
You're right. We'll get there. But what I do love though is I love that he is I think the idea they're suggesting here is that Obadiah Stane is the guy who's been double dealing the weapons. He's been behind all the bad stuff with Stark Industries, and I guess it's the idea of if Tony, committed to the business. If Tony didn't have his arc, he could have, by all means, like if Obadiah Stane came to him one day while he was the supercilious weapons manufacturer, maybe Obadiah could have turned him into, again, just like going with corrupting him and going with the flow and just perpetuating the problem. Like Tony, years later, again, we kind of have this in kind of our younger. Tony's a little younger than Obadiah, and I think that's because Obadiah worked with his father. I think the implication is years down the line, if Tony goes on the path before the arc reactor, he could become Obadiah Stane. He could become like the heartless weapon manufacturer, like the Ironmonger, like Obadiah Stane. I like years later, really looking at it with a fine tooth comb. I do really like what we do with Obadiah Stane, aside from just the fun quotable lines of Obadiah Stane.
He's a well-constructed villain. Like I said, he just kind of like unravels towards the end, which is a shame because I feel like about 85% of him is, really well done.
Yeah, I do love the scene between Tony and Pepper that just unfold that, while Tony is proactive, again, I love this is kind of a good statement on the Iron Man character this early on, that while Tony is proactive, and that's great, he does have a major character flaw that we expound upon in Iron Man 2 and even Iron Man 3 going forward, is that he has very addictive behavior, again with the demon in a bottle stuff we're going to do, and again the whole the obsessive kind of paranoid stuff in Iron Man 3. And that's a character flaw he has to kind of combat and kind of slowly get over the course of the MCU. Again, now with a noble mission, he's trying to kind of wipe the red out of his ledger, to quote the Avengers. And by not wasting his life, he's overcompensating in Yinson's last wish to not waste his life. And again, like the heart gift callback, it's all really, really nice. Again, nice reminder, and why him reminding her of that gift is kind of what swayed her. Like, okay, I'm on the right side here. I'm going to help now.
Mm-hmm.
This is a great tense sequence here, by the way. Again, it's an exposition dump, but there's a tension to it when Obadiah walks in. So again, we learn in this scene that Obadiah, I mean, this is another cool like reveal where we saw the video being filmed. You assumed that kind of went all over the place, but in actuality, that opening that was filmed with him being unbagged was actually filmed specifically for Obadiah's thing. It only went to one person. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. It is very much a also, Dragon, I feel like this is a perfect time. I've kind of been like dancing around this issue, but let's talk about the political climate that we were in when this movie came out. The whole the terrorism thing, the Patriot Act, all that stuff, because I feel like this at the end of this day, this is a very patriotic kind of politically charged movie, not as much as something like Civil War, but
I'm gonna say this.
for its time, I think it was an interesting choice.
I'm gonna say this though, T. Now you bring that up. I think you bring up a very interesting point that
Mhm.
I think we get Civil War because we again it's
Oh yeah, we
unavoidable.
absolutely do. Sure.
I'm just saying because again we're kind of in a time of kind of muddied waters in war at this time where again like things aren't clear cut and again there's more of like a conversation going on about war than there was in previous years. Like again, Vietnam's a very kind of like a left like it's a very distinct opinion. In this case, it's like well again there's no aren't really any wrong answers. Like it's all just kind of terrible. Just there are no wrong answers. But and again, like that whole kind of that muddied water conversation, that with the perspective, you had that a bigger, like more super heroic version of that conversation, like a superhero equivalent version of that in Civil War. I don't think you get there naturally without setting the movie around this time and dealing with these issues in the beginning. So I think it's kind of a cool,
Yeah, it's one of those things that it's almost kind of like in the background of the MCU, but it kind of paints some broad strokes in the MCU that we don't really ever think about, but it's there.
Jeff Bridges has two fantastic. I think he has two real standout scenes. Again, the scene right here with Pepper is one of them. The other one's a little later with Tony. Not that later with Tony, but before that later with
I would
Tony.
say I would say this is probably his most intimidating moment right here.
Well, the other one's a good contender for intimidation, but you're right. This is the most well kind of crafted, like the setting and everything. Where again, it's like, does he know? Does he know? Does he know? You're on the edge of your seat.
Right.
Pepper, get out of there! Don't get in the sports section. I'm just really excited to get to the next intimidating Obadiah Stane. I don't want to jump too far ahead to
Oh,
that, but I know coming up here, so Obadiah making the most out of his bald head here with this reaction, with kind of a face palm for the bald man. Okay, now he's going to the arc reactor. Oh, I'm sorry. I always love this with Pepper and Coulson here. I always love this like on the fly appointment. This really cemented their relationship, and this is like why we have fondness for Coulson in Avengers. This is always something that stuck out to me, and it's Favreau subverting convention because he's doing that indie movie style here, where he, where again it's like, hey, we're not going to do the conventional thing where like Coulson's like, hey, wait a minute, and it's like, no, okay, we're having this meeting now, on the go, man, go, go, go.
right, right.
Okay, Tiki, this is gonna blow your mind here. Okay, so that see the scientist here.
Yes.
Obadiah is kind of his right hand kind of development guy.
Yes.
That's Peter Billingsley. That's Ralphie from A Christmas Story.
Oh my god. That's
He
perfect.
shaved his head for the. He wanted to look different, so he shaved his head because he has full head of hair. I'm just saying that he is a friend of Jon Favreau and Vince Vaughn. That's why they do movies together a lot. Peter
Oh,
Billingsley is a
I assume
director.
he was in Night at the Roxbury.
I believe so. Yeah.
Uh,
Anyway, so like, and of course, years later, Iron Man 3, we have that Christmas Story reference.
of course, of course.
Loved you in A Christmas Story. Probably a loving line reference to Peter Billingsley on some level. He played, and he committed to his part there. He had like a one part line, of course, with the iconic line we kind of talked over. Do you want to hit him with it?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Tony Stark was able to build this in a cave with a box of scraps.
Right, right.
All right, so here's the other big Bridges scene I was talking about. This one I kind of like a little bit more, but the other one's more well constructed. But this is
Okay, I
great
feel
though.
like this is like more. It's physically intimidating because of the paralysis thing, but the one with Pepper is just it's socially intimidating. Like it's the kind of thing that you would almost kind of like expect to see from like a crappy work environment. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're right. I'm again both. Again, I think both are good scenes. But I think at the end of the day, you're going to be right. But this scene though is it's where it's so again it's so terrifying with that paralysis sound emitter. Here and again, this always stuck with me. I think it's why it kind of sticks with me more because he's paralyzed, unable to move. And again, the vein effect of he's all pale and everything. The music too, and like when he mentions when he reveals that that's why I had you. I had you captured. I tried to have you killed. And you hear like this music cue, like the sound drop out of the room, like, and you see the horror of like learning all this while you're unable to move for
Uh-huh.
15 minutes, and as he's literally ripping your heart, ripping your proverbial heart out. And again, I love the writing in this. That's what carries this one over for the other one for me. Is that I think I love the Golden Goose comparison and the helplessness of Tony Stark in this scene. It's a perfectly constructed scene where he's stealing his heart, something that was an earned symbol for Tony. He earned his compassion. He built it himself. He earned this. And Stain, being the businessman that he is, he callously, a man without a heart, is trying to steal another man's heart, stealing another man's earned. He's trying to do a shortcut to get to the. He's doing a shortcut to get a heart that again is something that he can mass produce, kind of make a hollow version of Tony's accomplishment, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that we turn the point of pride that Tony said earlier on, like his father was part of the Manhattan Project that helped end the war, where Obadiah puts it in perspective here for kind of where we go in Iron Man 2, where hey, your father helped build helped build the bomb that again kind of started the arms race. And again, we hold that up here where again the arc reactor is absolutely going to start in Iron Man 2. Is going to start a whole new arms race, like it's the next. Again, it's the next Cold War, essentially. Again, it's a really, really clever writing, clever kind of. Again, I don't need to just keep going back to the arc reactor, folks, but the arc reactor is one of the best symbols in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I'm going to tell you, it's always been really great.
Yeah, and it just goes back to the fact that they all they had it figured out right from the get-go that some of these movies don't really rely on action. They rely more on symbolism and three-act structure and just really good storytelling.
And I love that. By the way, I love that with Obadiah's last line to Tony there, he said that this is your legacy, Tony. I love that he's right about that in more ways than he knows, because again, as we find out, again, this is his legacy. Again, the arc reactor and kind of like the heroism is Iron Man. That is his legacy. So he's absolutely right about that. And this I love this scene. Kevin Smith adores this scene. I love it too. And again, I love how it showed the hopelessness and again the tension in this scene of him. The idea is 15 minutes have gone by without his heart, which means the shrapnel is entering his body inch by like centimeter by centimeter as this scene is going on. So he's in great peril because that 15 minutes until the paralysis wore off is done a number on him, and now he's just racing. It's a race against the clock, and he's so close. And nope. And again, what saves him? A symbol, not just the symbol of what's being brought down right now, but the symbol of his true nostalgia that he denied, that he always kind of talked down to, saved him. The dummy saved him, and he compliments the dummy that he keeps mocking throughout the film. He's showing kindness to his own creation.
Yeah,
That's
nice,
it's so beautiful.
Nice full circle story arc right there.
The boy brings him his heart again, like a piece of nostalgia, bringing him a symbol of nostalgia, and again, nostalgia saves his life. I mean, that's beautiful. Okay, now I got to tell you this about the Ironmonger. So they racked their brains over the villains for this movie when they figured out they weren't doing the Mandarin Tiki.
I mean, at the end of the day, let's face it, Iron Man doesn't have the most memorable rogues gallery in the world.
Again, aside from Mandarin, he does not have.
It's no Spider-Man.
You're right. But here's the thing, though. So again, because of that, they really scrambled for the villains. Because here's the thing: Iron Man's villains, honestly, again from the animated series, what they did is they gave him like a team of villains that they kept using again and again and again because they couldn't think of anything else. And it was like almost like a Legion of Doom for every episode, essentially. Anyway, and they all worked for the Mandarin. That was the gimmick. Anyway, so here's the thing. They built the Ironmonger suit, all right? Now, while they were building it, they were going to do the Crimson Dynamo. Now, remember the end of Iron Man 2 where Vanko's in the giant suit of armor?
Yeah.
Essentially, that's Crimson Dynamo. It's a red version of the Ironmonger suit or the Dynamo suit. Again, it's the same idea where Favreau, while he wasn't doing Mandarin, he wanted something visually distinct. Because, again, Iron Man was an unknown quantity. So how can we make this memorable? will homage again what he was going for with the indie vibe. He was going for let's do RoboCop. Let's kind of do a RoboCop 2 essentially, where it's RoboCop versus RoboCop Mark II, which is like a giant version of the RoboCop, more intimidating, more all that. So he's going for a RoboCop vibe. And in doing so, he was going to go Crimson Dynamo because they want to do the Russian thing, but then they had too many Russians and they had Obadiah Stane to factor in there, so they realized, you know what, we'll do Obadiah Stane, and Obadiah Stane in the comics was the Ironmonger, which was a big Iron Man suit that dwarfed Iron Man, and essentially what we did there, we homage here, Tiki, is Stane. It's honestly, it's very faithful to what I recall because I read the story. Denny O'Neil wrote. I think Denny O'Neil wrote this story because Denny O'Neil created Obadiah Stane, and it's so funny. He mentioned on Fat Man on Batman with Kevin Smith that he he called if not Kevin Feige, he called a joke aside, called someone at Marvel and he said, you know what, we just we love not getting the royalties for Ironmonger. We're eating cat food right now, but thanks for remembering. He was joking, of course. And they gave him the royalties for for Ironmonger. Says, yeah, we checked it. Yeah, you get we get a little something for Ironmonger. Kind of cute.
So coming up might be one of the very first elements of MCU sequel baiting.
War Machine. Now, so
originally, is that the first sequel bait that we ever get in the MCU? Like,
I think you're absolutely right. That's the direct sequel bait because again, they wanted to do War Machine like there was no tomorrow, but like you said, here are the two things. So again, in the comic, essentially when Obadiah Stane, he was a businessman who, at the very last, at a desperate attempt, he donned the Ironmonger suit and he was blasting. He got into a fight with Iron Man and he died. That's how his story went. I mean, so essentially, they're very faithful in the execution of Ironmonger. There is that the only element they're missing is that he committed suicide in the Iron Man. He used the repulsor to his head to blow his brains out. And because his father he had committed suicide, it was a flashback story. Like the Stane men under pressure, they were criminals, and they killed themselves so they wouldn't be taken in by the police. In this case, it wouldn't be taken in by Iron Man. So that's the only element they lost from it. So they changed Dynamo to Monger, and in the third act, originally, Tony was going to have another suit of armor that was going to be the War Machine armor. He was going to don the War Machine armor and fight Stane.
I almost kind of feel like that would have worked if we were a little further into the MCU, where not necessarily recycling the War Machine armor, but more so the idea of Tony having different armor. Again, War Machine is his own character, but I feel like we have gone to the point, especially with Iron Man 3, where it's like, all right, we're seeing all these different types of armor. So I feel like, yeah, that would have been a little bit of a slap in the face to the character of War Machine. I could see the direction they were going for in that.
Real quick, it just happened, but Tiki, that moment where Pepper Potts is running away from Ironmonger, that's the Universal Ride moment for me. That's the moment. It's just like the years I've spent on Jimmy Neutron Nicktoon Blast, where you're going backwards from the big obstacle in the ride.
Oh yeah.
That's that's the 4D ride experience that I've had for so many years.
Of course, they emulate that with Black Widow and the Hulk and Avengers.
That's what I'm saying. But again, even when they do that, Tiki, it doesn't measure up. Because again, the camera's moving backwards as Stane is chasing her, just like one of the Universal rides.
Gotcha.
That's what I'm saying. So that ride, that is the image. As much as the instant death is my favorite scene, but that scene will always be like the most like nostalgic. That's the first thing that pops in my mind when I think Iron Man. When I think of the Iron Man movie. Okay, so getting into things. Also, we had a cool homage to like when he was in the cave and he emerged to beat the terrorists, and of course Stane emerges all terrifying from the shadows. I like that we show reverence for like the original inspiration behind the Ironmonger suit with the Mark I like that. Okay, so again, I did lay out a lot of stuff with Ironmonger, and I'll say this: I think it does track. Does it necessarily excuse what they do? No, but I'm just saying it does. It kind of tracks what the character did. And my logic, the only logic I have for this, aside from that, I would agree with everything you're going to say, Tiki. The only logical thing I could use to excuse this is that Obadiah Stane, he knows he's. I mean, S.H.I.E.L.D. was coming for him. They were going to take him in. He knew he was through, and Tony was on to him with Pepper Potts and everything. He knew he was done. So I guess Stane's he's throwing caution to the wind. He's going to kill Tony Stark as revenge, and he'll basically, in his own mind, he'll blast off. He'll go away, and he'll be like he'll be on the black market selling Iron Man, basically selling the arc reactor to other bad guys. Like he'll sell under the table directly to terrorists. No, illusions of being like a squeaky clean
Right,
businessman.
right.
That is the
Sure.
only logic I have, because otherwise you're absolutely right, and everyone's absolutely right. There's no sense why he would, risk just going out in public trying to kill Iron Man like this.
Well, yeah, I mean, not only that, but he's just like so reckless about it. You know what I mean? It's almost kind of like a miniature version of the Man of Steel thing, where it's like so many innocent people kind of get caught in the crossfire of it potentially.
The cool thing is, though, I like that we see Iron Man saving the innocent people here.
Yes, yes, we do. You're right, which is more than you can say about Man of Steel. Shots
It's,
fired.
it's true. But yeah, you see what I mean, though. Again, I gotta give it credit, like with a fine tooth comb. Though it is again, it does have some grains there for like there is like a minor defense you can make for Ironmonger doing these reckless things, but you know, it does at the very least it still feels kind of it feels very third acty. It feels like we need the climax, we need our battle. I'll say
I
this
feel
much.
like there's two big things to kind of like hit against Ironmonger. A, the fact that he's kind of just like, oh, it's an evil Iron Man. Ooh. And B, like I said, the sudden shift in how he handles things. But overall, with Jeff Bridges, throughout the first 2.5 acts, he really is very engaging. I don't know, like he's certainly not like a Ronin or a Dark Elf from Thor: The Dark World. He's definitely he's far above something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I do.
It's interesting because like I kind of feel like the phase 1 MCU villains, like phase 2 MCU villains is where like for the most part outside of like Winter Soldier, they were pretty bad. But phase 1 MCU villains, they were just kind of good. They like we had Red Skull, we had Ironmonger, we had
Loki.
well, yeah, Loki. I mean, even Loki didn't really get a chance to fully shine until Avengers. And then Abomination and Incredible Hulk, which I actually kind of think is a little bit underrated for a villain. But what these guys had in common is that they didn't steal their movies by any stretch. And they weren't bad by any means, but we kind of got a sense that the MCU we could do a little bit more with the villains. And to be fair, I kind of feel like we had to walk before we learned to run because we had some growing pains with the villains. But now we're at a point where I feel like the MCU has kind of really hit their stride with the villains between Killmonger and I don't want to say too much about the reviews, Dragon, but I'm hearing really good things about Thanos.
Oh,
Like
that's
Thanos,
wonderful. That's good.
Thanos is definitely not a disappointment, so I'll say that
All right,
much.
a few things to hit here. So here's honestly, I'll give a lot of the Ironmonger stuff. Again, I'll give it consideration as I already went through with you, Tiki. But I yeah, again, like I'll try to justify it in the beginning there because I just honestly still feel that we should have ended the Ironmonger stuff with the icing defeat was really clever. Like how'd you
Oh
solve
yeah,
the
I
icing?
totally agree. I
You know,
absolutely agree.
like here's the thing, like when people say that's like okay, we need a third act battle, I'll say this scene right here where they're like on the roof on the rooftop, this is like this is the big unexcusable symptom of like yeah, we need a third act battle. This is like we need them to go mano a mano for a few rounds.
Uh-huh.
That's what this feels like. Again, it's not a terrible thing, I'm just saying this is like it's everything else in the movie is like the kind of next level stuff except for this is the one thing. It's like okay, it's like Green Goblin fighting Spider-Man. It's very much very much that, or like Daredevil fighting the Kingpin at the end of the Daredevil movie. One of those.
Yeah, I like the physicality of that fight.
Okay, actually, I'm sorry. To be fair, let me redact that. Actually, maybe it's a little bit more Bullseye versus Daredevil. I don't know. So the I mean, it's
I'm
kind of
trying to think of a better example from an even more mediocre Marvel movie.
well, I mean, the worst example would probably be Ang Lee's Hulk, but
Oh yeah, oh god, that is
it's
indeed,
not. Here, we're gonna give
yeah.
you a fight that's not even a fight. It's like an idea of a fight.
Hey, what do you expect from Ang Lee's Hulk after 2 hours of sitting through that?
All right, let's see. Just want to cover a few things here. So I love the element of this. Let's see another. The whole like sequence of he put in the first arc reactor, the nostalgic arc reactor, which is not suited for flight capabilities, as we saw with the Mark One. Again, it was like like one blast and then you land in the desert, so it's not capable for flight. What that means, there's a big drain on the power. So I love that we've weakened our hero by giving like a ticking clock with the arc reactor, the percentage of power he can put into things. I love that device. That we're it's like not an easy fix for our guy, and of course Ironmonger here representing kind of the clunky, less sophisticated, but still big and imposing version of what Iron Man could be had he gone south. Again, what Tony could be if he were Stain, but again, they kind of visualized in Ironmonger. Like he could be just big, clunky, and like unsophisticated. Where Tony Dorsey's very cutting edge, sophisticated, and again, importantly, Iron Man has the more user friendly human design. Again, it's a human man versus an iron monster.
Uh-huh.
So it's that's cool. And again, here, you know what's weird? There's like a deleted scene where they extended the defeat of of Obadiah Stane. It was really weird because I mean I think they wanted the best option here, where Tony's stalling and then he basically tells her to push the button and kind of electrifies him to death. So that was I think two things. So one, that was the better way to go. And originally it was going to be he was going to land on the this big kind of wired thing that Tony's hanging on right now, this big
Uh-huh.
grate, and they're going to have like a conversation where Tony tries to save him, and I'm going to take
Oh
you
man,
with
that
me.
would have been ridiculous.
I know it's going to
Especially
be.
with how big Ironmonger is, man. I mean,
Trust me,
come on.
it was really dumb. Well, again, he would be sliding out of the suit, so he was going to be sliding out. The point is, it's ridiculous. But here's
Oh.
the second point, though, and this is the thing. It's still
Oh, hey, giant beam in the sky. I didn't even realize we did that.
To be fair, though, that was it was just a lighting effect. It wasn't an actual.
I know. I mean, I literally just caught that we did that just now, Dragon. So I'm not gonna I just wanted to point that out. Like, hey, giant beam, yeah, they did the thing.
This has always been another nitpick for me, though. Again, like the other two are more serious. Again, I think each act kind of has a nitpick against that stupid music in the first act.
All right. To be fair, that's a very subjective nitpick.
Okay, but back. Let's just get to this one then. So this one is like.
I mean, I'm sure there's at least someone listening out there who's like, "That's my favorite band of all time," and you've insulted me, Dragon.
I don't care. That person has terrible taste. I'm gonna say it. Yeah, no, seriously though. Again, this thing always kind of. I wish Stain didn't fold directly into the arc reactor because again, it always raises that question: How does Tony survive? Because that arc reactor is what's powering the little arc reactor.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. You have to assume it's luck or something. I mean, my guess. I mean, I never had to really think about it until getting ready for this, Tiki. My logic is my headcanon, I guess, is the only way I can imagine he survives is that Tony, when he comes to, he quickly develops like what Yinsen did for him in the beginning. He makes like a makeshift electromagnet before he can develop like a way of miniaturizing the arc reactor's power source.
Uh-huh.
I mean, basically a permanent way of like instead of like connecting to the factories one because that's what they're hinting at with that shot. But that's one of those buys of like, I mean, it's dramatic and it's cool. Like oh man, I don't know if he's going to survive or not. But I mean, what's the point if we know absolutely he's going to survive? So I don't know. It's always like a little. That's a pet peeve. But the other one's just it's like a little unnecessary tension in that last moment there. It does mirror the first shot though, like coming in, like when he had the shrapnel first put in the chest. So I'll give it that. This is great, and again, we're hitting upon probably the biggest stroke of genius in the entire film. But before that, though, we have a nice scene with Pepper and Coulson. Oh, yeah, the middle thing I was trying to think of here's the shield is the shield thing, which we're doing right here. Where again, as they didn't know when they're
yeah,
I know they didn't know they were just gonna like model like Peggy Carter was gonna call it Shield because of Captain America. We didn't know it at that time. But at the same time, I mean, it's like really that no one could piece together. Hey, strategic, the acronym. We can't just call it Shield for short. It was always a weird choice. That's like, oh my god, they're referencing Shield. That's another Easter egg moment. Too. That's like them spelling out an Easter egg along with War Machine's like the big T's and Shield's like, hey, if you know what that is,
Uh-huh.
And this is nice, and I think this is one of the reasons
I had no idea if S.H.I.E.L.D. was the bad guys or not, Dragon.
Really?
Yeah, to be fair, I guess I was kind of in the right to to be skeptical of them in retrospect.
You were. So this is like one of those scenes right here. The next two scenes that are about to unfold. This one right here with Tony and Pepper. Again, this speaks to the relationship, and this is like one of the reasons it sets this movie apart from a lot of other superhero movies where we acknowledge like, yeah, you left me on that rooftop. And again, them kind of it's them communicating their feelings for each other by not mentioning at all what they're feeling. They're talking about this unrelated thing, but it's like, hey, remember that? It's like Tony being nostalgic for a moment where he's thinking, hey, remember that good time that we had? Oh yeah, before you left me alone.
Uh-huh.
It's sweet. Okay, now this is a stroke of brilliance at the end of this movie. Now, again, knowing the little that I knew about Iron Man, again, Civil War had, of course, come out.
I would wager to say, like, up until this point, this might be the best ending to a superhero movie we've ever gotten.
Yeah, and again, again, people, and again, I knew the little I knew about Iron Man. I didn't know about the whole bodyguard cover story. And again, when they're spelling that out, they're preparing for that. It's like, oh, okay, they're going to go the bodyguard thing. However, Civil War had come out a year before, and there was a question. I mean, are they really gonna? Could they do the whole "I am Iron Man" moment this early on?
Uh-huh.
And again,
And I
like,
feel like that bold of a decision is kind of what went on to define the MCU in a lot of ways.
and essentially what that moment is, it's like never assume you know where we're going with it. Essentially, that's what their message. That's a really big ballsy message to have
And it's
at the
not
end of
just
your
for the
Marvel movie.
MCU. It's not just for Iron Man, but it's a big ballsy message for just the superhero genre in general.
And again, it's kind of a choice that speaks to Downey too, in casting him as Tony Stark, where it's like, hey, he's the guy who does the unexpected thing, or he makes you fall in love with whatever choice he makes, within this film, and that's kind of the whole. Hey, I am Iron Man. I'm kind of a glory hound. It's kind of him, everyone going against the grain. Honestly, I'm gonna go as far as this. It's kind of that Stan Lee thinking of the day, where it's like, hey, let's just go against the grain. Let's do what everyone else is like saying. No, no, no one would stand. That's not. You know what a superhero is, and of course. Yeah, it's kind of something that cuts to the core of what these Marvel characters are, reflections of Stan Lee's kind of flights of fantasy of like, what if?
Uh-huh.
You know, it's neat. And by the way, I just want to. Something occurs to me that when Tony Stark's saying if people are thinking I'm some kind of superhero, I mean that'd be outlandish and fantastic. Him saying superhero, the implication is that I just want to throw this in there. The implication is that whenever they say superhero, they're referring to Captain America in the MCU.
Right,
Before
right.
Iron Man, again, you gotta imagine the only superhero established in the MCU that people really know about that's Captain America. So it's a very subtle Captain America reference in retrospect.
Now you see there's the Captain America Easter egg that's actually legit.
Yeah. By the way, so we saw
Very long credits, Dragon.
yeah, again, there's a lot of. I wonder. T, I'm just gonna throw this out there. I wonder if there's more credits because we did more overcomplicated effects things with ILM and everything. So we need twice the effects guys before years later the technology becomes a little simpler.
It could be. It also could be the different studios involved.
I get that too. Yeah, you're right. Again, really, it's a very witty commentary on the superhero cliches in those last two moments. With the girl and the girl and the superhero, and of course, kind of the big like, do you keep the secret identity? Like we put into perspective. Honestly, even with the villain battle, we kind of have again the 2 out of 3 with that. We're like kind of like the checklist of superhero movies and kind of the superhero origin 101. Okay, we do kind of the classic hero villain battle, but we're going to subvert this and we're going to subvert that in a big memorable way. It's going to basically define this film for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Dragon, to kind of streamline this, do you want to just talk about the Nick Fury scene, then get into final thoughts, and if it's not like after we're done with that, if it's not quite over with, do you want to just kind of sign off anyways? Because I'm just saying we got a lot of credits to sit through.
All right. Well, let's talk about Fury.
Okay, so first of all, Dragon, I'm gonna age myself here, but in the ye olden days when the MCU was just starting out, I had no idea to stay after the credits, so I had to find out about this through the internet. Just want to point that out. Secondly, it's one of those things where like even after finding out about it, I had no idea who Nick Fury was. Of course, the Avengers. I to be honest with you, Drag, this might be a little bit of a controversial statement. I honestly think this post-credit scene, yeah, obviously it's historically significant. It's the first MCU post-credit scene. It kind of laid the groundwork. Might be a little bit overhyped.
Whoa. Those some fighting words there. Overhyped, huh?
I'm just saying because we all knew that Avengers is what they were trying to build towards. So it's not like this was like some huge reveal or anything. I'm just saying, like, in the context, in the grand spectrum of post-credit scenes that we've gotten, this it's humble. You know what I mean? It's a quaint, humble post-credit scene. I don't think it's like the doorbuster that people make it out to be, really. I don't know. I mean, call me crazy.
Well, fun fact too, by the way, is either in this scene or like an earlier deleted scene where they actually tried to work in a Mandarin reference, but they kind of got rid of that, which suggests that Favreau still had like a direction with the Mandarin he was kind of going in, where basically the Mandarin in his guise is like another industrialist who's trying to contact Tony Stark. And again, like the idea is like you don't know if the Mandarin's pulling the strings for the 10 rings. Again, it was deleted, so it's unclear like how far where Favreau was going with the Mandarin in his own mind. I really love to find that out if you'd ever revealed that. But. So the post-credit scene of it all, again, I love Fury's line so much. I mean, that's the thing that sticks with me from that post-credit scene. It's the line that defines where we've gone in the MCU. Or again, it's that line. It's very derivative in a good way of Star Wars. It's very much you've taken your first steps. In this case, I am Iron Man. You think you're the only superhero? You're Stark. You become part of a bigger universe. That line, becoming part of a bigger universe. Just Fury saying that to him, and again, the reveal. Like, I mean, I knew about the whole Sam Jackson Nick Fury thing, so it was a question later. Are they gonna be really gutsy? They're gonna go with someone that outside of the big actor. No, of course, they've always wanted Sam Jackson to play him in the movie. Hence the reason they put him in the comics. It's not really a surprise that they got him. However, I'm with you, Tiki, and I didn't know back in the day. I did not stay to the very end. I was uninformed, and it's funny. I learned that Kevin Feige, just to show you how kind of weird and kind of wacky things are. Kevin Feige, he was inspired by Ferris Bueller's Day Off with the post-credit scene for this.
Oh.
And so funny, Deadpool years later.
I feel like before the MCU, Ferris Bueller was kind of like the definitive post-credit scene.
You're coming in kind of ironmongery.
Well, at least it wasn't the full podcast. How am I going to be now?
Still.
All right. Well, let me go out and come back in. At least
I'll keep looking through it. All right.
Okay.
Anyway, folks. I mean, again, just become part of a bigger universe. I love that line. I love that opens the door for the MCU. And again, there are going to be more heroes. You hope there are going to be more heroes, whether they're going to be connected or not. Again, just the word of mouth is that's what was going to happen. Again, assuming the movie is successful, at the very least for 2 movies, they're going to do that. And again, just knowing that it all comes together, it's such a fun thing to reflect on. What I was getting at is it's so funny that Deadpool, when they do the full Ferris Bueller's Day Off thing, they do the post-credits in Ferris Bueller, he's mentioning Sam Jackson, the leathery number. It's kind of a fun snake eating the tail with Deadpool and a fourth wall way being able to reference that hey, Kevin Feige inspired by Ferris Bueller's Day Off, rewards the audience at the end, and Deadpool kind of makes reference to that. So it's a fun kind of meta snake eating the tail. So again, all shapes the MCU, and again, it was the first. It was a very appropriate post-credits, and it keeps the audience kind of interested in more, and basically confirms an Avengers thing. So it was kind of like Deadpool. Last little Deadpool comparison here, kind of like Deadpool. It's kind of banking on a future, and it's confident about that future to a large extent. And that's kind of what they're doing there. It's like, hey, you want to know who this eye patch guy is, just in case you're going to be. At least we got in there. We reference what we want to do. Kind of fun, a little fun fact about Jon Favreau here that he confirmed that I never knew this. I feel a little embarrassed. I didn't. This is called the graveyard in a post-credit scene. Whenever you see the logos of the studios at the end, that's called the graveyard.
All right, how am I now?
You're great now. I know there's the post-credit scene. So yeah, I already talked about my piece on it. Just threw some Deadpool comparisons in there. How it's all kind of full circle and meta. How even referencing Nick Fury and everything, so it's all
Okay, so I guess just getting into my final thoughts, folks. Yeah, Iron Man, like I said, it's a very interesting case study. It's a really it's a time capsule, if you will. It's kind of like, it kind of goes to show how far we've come since the MCU started, but also, in some ways, how much of what we've stuck to we've kind of held on to throughout the years, both in terms of all the characters that pop up in this that weave their way in, that pop up in Homecoming, and then also just the tone of the MCU, the fact that every MCU movie is a different genre. It's a trendsetter for sure, and it was the surprise hit of the summer of 2008, and now getting into the summer of 2018, we're just on the eve of just this giant atomic bomb of a movie hitting us. So So really, really fascinating to look back on this thing to kind of see where it all began. I really enjoyed it. It's definitely Dragon, it's not a top 5 MCU movie for me. I'd say it's probably like on the verge of my top 10, but that kind of speaks to the quality of MCU as a whole, is that this film was able to just catapult us into bigger and better things in the future. And none of it would be possible without Jon Favreau, Robert Downey Jr. and company.
Certainly. So, I think rewatching this movie and seeing it and getting ready for Infinity War, seeing Snake eating the tail, going back to the very beginning of things. I think you see why this is the foundation of the MCU. You see why, absolutely. It's solid. It's bold for its time. It was a new approach to the superhero origin. It crafted the MCU's playbook in many respects. Thematically, it is a very strong character arc, and also at the same time works as a one shot. And I think that's important with that that indie approach with the practical, that practicality applied to the CG look of it all. Again, has that earnest kind of elbow grease vibe with it, and I really appreciate that. I love how this is how you communicate, a human character, a flawed human character who has a way to go, has an adventure that you really want to see unfold, a character that you root for, a character different than what your usual character is. Again, we kind of captured that Stan Lee magic, where it's like, hey, you're going to root for this character you never imagined you're going to root for. In this case, he's this weapons dealer who actually he's got a kind of a charm and charisma to him. But again, when you really think about it, he's kind of a war profiteer. And again, he goes through an arc, a redemptive arc, and it's wonderful. And it's satisfying as is here. And again, it just got better and better as it went on. We fell in love with Robert Downey Jr. And again, that character taking on that role and just kind of in real life as well. I love Robert Downey Jr. He gave robotic limbs to children, like robotic prosthetics, the children who are without limbs. He's been able to do that for people. He's been given giving the charities. He's been again, that role has impacted that man for the better, and vice versa. Again, he opened the gates to all the MCU actors in many respects. Like, at the very least, he helped them a great deal. If they weren't going to get to the big screen one way or another, I'm saying this whole process hinged on the success of this film. And at the end of the day, rewatching it, it's trippy and wonderful to re-examine this film 10 years later on the eve of Infinity War. And I couldn't be prouder of this movie. For me, it's always going to be between Iron Man and Captain America: First Avenger in terms of like where to rank them. It's always going to be like neck and neck between those movies because they both kind of third act issues, but I mean they're both fantastic and they're both very different. I love them both. I have nostalgic connections to Iron Man. I have like a love for Captain America and a rewatchability with Captain America. But it's at the end of the day, this is filmmaking 101 for a superhero movie, and it's absolutely wonderful. And again, thank goodness for I echo Tiki's thoughts full heartedly. Just thank goodness for Kevin Feige having the right idea. Thank goodness for Jon Favreau sticking to his guns, getting Robert Downey Jr. And just thank goodness for Marvel Studios just to have the guts to say, you know what. Had a lot of failures in the past in the 90s, but you know what? We're going to try it again. All right.
Okay, folks, so that'll do it for our extensive, preseason build-up to Infinity War, and the only other thing left to do is our first reactions, and then our spoiler cast. So the first reactions is going to be tomorrow night after I finish up the movie, which will be late tomorrow night, very late on the East Coast, early in the morning on the East Coast. And then on Sunday, we're going to be doing the whole blown spoiler cast. And my Dragon, that's like, we need to do our very best to make sure that thing's not 4 hours long, because I have a feeling the whole movie is going to be nothing but spoilers. All right. So thanks for watching it, folks, and see you on the other side of this massive cultural event that we're staring down.
The dead